Chapter 3:22. Of course not. Yi Hao chuckled. He wished he could leave the Imperial Palace right now. He did not want to stay in the Imperial Palace any longer. Team 2 and Team 8 gather. Yi Hao shouted. Team 8 and Team 2 had been gathered by Yi Hao a few days ago. When they heard Yi Hao's order, they immediately gathered together. There were more than 400 people. The weakest among them was a martial honorable. One could imagine how powerful they were. These were just two teams in the Imperial Palace of the Bustling dynasty. Follow me, Yi Hao shouted. Yes, many of them looked happy. After all, most of them had not been out of the Imperial Palace for a long time. Now that they were out of the Imperial Palace, they were very excited. The elite guards of Team 8 nodded to each other. It was obvious what they meant. After we leave the Imperial Palace, I will think of a way to sneak out to buy some pills. Brother F.A. whispered to the people around him. They nodded immediately. A few hundred people left the Imperial Palace and flew to the teleportation formation. It was Yi Hao's first time taking a teleportation formation. He was curious. If he could learn how to do it, he could set it up in the Fire Dragon Empire. It would be a great help to the development of the Fire Dragon Empire. Stop! Who are you? This is a restricted area of the Imperial Palace. As soon as Yi Hao and the others landed, a group of guards immediately surrounded them in a large hall that resembled a castle. How dare you? He is the commander of Team 2 and the vice commander of Team 8, Lu Ji. Hurry up and salute him. One of the guards stood out and shouted. This lowly one didn't know that Commander Lu had arrived. This lowly one has been negligent. Commander Lu, please take out your identity medallion and let this lowly one examine it. The guards of the teleportation formation looked at Yi Hao when they heard what the guards said. Those who were on duty in the Imperial Palace of the Bustling dynasty were elites. They were 1 in a million and were selected to be in the Imperial Palace. Those who could become commanders were the elites of the elites. The people in front of them were the commanders of 2 teams. Who was he? That was a rare occurrence in the Holy Bai dynasty. Moreover, the 8th squad was famous in the Bustling Holy Dynasty. Becoming the vice commander of the 8th squad was several times more difficult than becoming the leader of the other squads. Therefore, when facing such a person, he had no choice but to take him seriously. Take it. Yi Hao threw his 2 official seals to the guards of the teleportation portal. The guards of the teleportation portal hurriedly caught it in a panic. That was the seal of the commander of the Imperial Guards of the Bustling dynasty. If it was broken, he wouldn't be able to pay for it, even if he killed himself. Of course, it was impossible for the official seal to be broken, but who knew what kind of temper the person in front of him had? If he were to break the official seal, a casual cough from him would scare him into peeing his pants. The teleportation formation guard looked at the official seal in his hand and immediately knelt on the ground. Greetings, Lord Commander. I will go and activate the teleportation formation for you. Go. Yi Hao put away his official seal and nodded. Yi Hao followed the guard's lead, and the group walked into the castle. To Yi Hao's surprise, there were secret rooms made of stone inside. It was different from what he had expected. Lord, what do you want to be teleported to? The guard asked respectfully after entering the castle. To Yuan Tian City. Guo Shuefu had told him the address. At that moment, Guo Shuefu and Xiao Qing, who were dressed in black, were hiding in the crowd. Yes, Lord. The guard immediately went to a corner and opened the door of a stone room. The guard took out some white crystals that looked like demonic beast crystal cores and inserted them into a hole at the side of the stone room. Lord, you can go in now. After doing that, the guard stepped aside and said respectfully to Yi Hao, what kind of stone was that? Yi Hao looked at the corner of the crystal on the stone wall and asked curiously. He had a feeling that the teleportation portal would most likely have to rely on this strange crystal in order to function. Commander, this is a space crystal. The teleportation formation's energy source completely depends on it. The guard immediately explained. Can you give me a few? Yi Hao had never seen this space crystal before, so he wanted to study it. However, Yi Hao did not expect the guard to give it to him. Looking at the guard's cautious appearance just now, he could tell that the space crystal was very precious. This, in a sense, The value of the space crystal was comparable to the Marshall Path crystal, or even higher. This was because the teleportation talisman was difficult to refine. Although the teleportation formation was also difficult to refine, it was not like the teleportation talisman, which was a one-time use item. As long as there were space crystals, the teleportation formation could be used continuously. Moreover, it could teleport at least a few people and at most thousands of people. This was something that ordinary teleportation talismans could not do. He did not have many space crystals in his hands, and they were all reported, so he did not dare to use them carelessly. However, he still kept a few for himself. He wanted to use them to exchange for cultivation resources. These were all obtained by risking his life. It could be said that these were his lifeblood. However, Yi Hao held two commander positions. It was rare for someone like him to ask for something. It was also rare for him to meet someone like him. Perhaps this was an opportunity for him. Yes, there are 3 space crystals here. Please accept them, Commander. The guard reluctantly took out the 3 space crystals he had accumulated over the years and carefully handed them to Yi Hao. Space crystal, a crystal formed by the condensation of spatial power. It can be used to create spatial weapons, teleportation formations. Yi Hao used the probing technique on the space crystal, and the information about it immediately appeared in Yi Hao's mind. Well, if you want to enter the palace, you can report to the 3rd squad and mention my name. Yi Hao could tell that the guard had a pained expression on his face when he took out the 3 space crystals. Since he had taken the guard's things, he naturally had to give him something in return. Thank you, Commander. Thank you, Commander. Upon hearing Yi Hao's words, the guard immediately expressed his gratitude. The 3 space crystals had not gone to waste. It was the dream of countless people to be able to enter the Imperial Guards. He was no exception. Because the Imperial Palace was the core of the Bai Shang dynasty, the martial power there was naturally much stronger than in other places. As long as he became one of the Imperial Guards, the cultivation resources he would receive would definitely be incomparable. Furthermore, he was a member of the Bai Shang dynasty and had a strong sense of belonging to the dynasty. It was also his dream to enter the Imperial Guards. Ding dong. Space array discovered. Do you want to learn it? Yi Hao and the others had just stepped into the stone room. Before Yi Hao could observe the runes under his feet, he felt dizzy and a notification rang in his mind. Learn it. Although he was dizzy, Yi Hao's consciousness was still there. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for learning the space array. As the host's array carver level increases, the space array will automatically level up. The space array, which was also a teleportation formation, also had levels. The higher the level of the formation, the further it could teleport. Chapter 3:23. One-way teleportation arrays could only be used to send people out, not back. Two-way teleportation arrays could be used to send people out as well as back. However, there was only one fixed coordinate. The one under Yi Hao's feet was a two-way teleportation array. It could be used to teleport people from the dynasty to Yuan-Tian City, and it could also be used to teleport people back. One-way teleportation arrays couldn't be used. One-way teleportation arrays could be used to teleport people from the Imperial City to Yuan-Tian City, but they couldn't be used to teleport people back. Regardless of whether it was a one-way or two-way teleportation array, it could only be used to teleport people from the Imperial Palace to Yuan-Tian City. Multi-way teleportation arrays didn't have this restriction. Some could teleport people to 2 or 3 places, while others could teleport people to dozens of places. Whether it was in some wars or dealing with some urgent matters, the teleportation array definitely played a crucial role and could save a lot of time. After an unknown number of seconds, Yi Hao felt his vision brighten. When he opened his eyes, he realized that he had already appeared in another stone room. This teleportation array is really not bad. The dynasty was thousands of kilometers away from Yuan-Tian City. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived in Yuan-Tian City. Yi Hao already had the theory of teleportation arrays in his mind, as well as the method and essentials of engraving them. However, based on his current level, he reckoned that he could only engrave one-way, short-distance teleportation arrays. However, he would have to wait until he had time to study the specific operation. We want to teleport to Haizi City. Yi Hao didn't waste any time. He immediately took out his official seal and instructed the teleportation guard. At the same time, Yi Hao managed to swindle another 5 spatial crystals. This was truly a case of the heavens being high and the emperor being far away. The teleportation guards of a small city actually coveted 2 more spatial crystals than the guards of the imperial city. In one day, Yi Hao and his group had been teleported through more than a dozen teleportation arrays. Yi Hao also had more than 40 space crystals in his possession. Although they had been teleported so many times, they were still within the Bai Sheng sacred dynasty. One could imagine how huge the Bai Sheng sacred dynasty was. The group had already been teleported to the vicinity of the level 7 area. Yi Hao could clearly feel that the martial power in the air was a few hundred times thinner. This was also why the martialists in the higher regions were much stronger than the martialists in the lower regions. However, the Myriad Kingdom continent was simply too big. How many martial artists could only cross over a few countries in their lifetime? And this was only a corner of the region. If one wanted to cross regions, one could forget about it without a great opportunity. There was no chance at all. As for the teleportation array, it was not something that ordinary people could afford. Space crystals were incomparably precious. Not only was it difficult to inscribe a space array, but it would also consume a large amount of space crystals each time. It might even be comparable to a small duchy. After being teleported to the level 7 area, the martial arts power was sparse. Many guards were clearly not used to it. Their eyes were filled with disgust and disdain, unwilling to stay here for even a second longer. This was also why many martial artists were very powerful. If they were in these low-level areas, they could easily dominate a region. To be willing to be an odd-job worker in a high-class area of a major power, just this thin martial strength was already unbearable for them. They might be able to make a breakthrough in a year in the higher regions, but here, it would take them hundreds of years to make a breakthrough. It might even cause their cultivation to stagnate. Actually, compared to before, this place is already much stronger. Guo Shuefu said when she saw that everyone, except for Yi Hao, was not used to it. Oh, why do you say that? Everyone looked at Guo Shuefu in confusion, because the martial strength here is several times thinner than before. Guo Shuefu's pleasant voice rang out, shocking everyone. What? It's even thinner by several times. How are we supposed to live like this? Can we still cultivate? If I am left here, I might as well die. This is simply not a place for people to stay. When I was in the Bishing dynasty, even sleeping would be faster than cultivating here for a few years. Otherwise, why do you think the low-level areas are basically filled with low-level martial artists, and the gap between them and the high-class areas is so big? Guo Shuefu rolled her eyes at everyone and said, "You're right, Miss Guo." Everyone immediately looked as if they had been taught a lesson. What a joke. The woman in front of them was the woman that His Highness Bai Yi liked. Although they did not know her identity, she had the chance to become the empress, and they had to deal with her carefully. But Miss Guo, if you want to increase the martial strength of a region, either a powerful treasure or a powerful force must appear. But it is impossible to increase the martial strength of a region by several times. Brother Fa asked curiously. At the same time, he wanted to show his face in front of Guo Shuefu. Perhaps he could hug the thigh of the future empress. Who told you that it is a region? Guo Shuefu asked with a chuckle. How much is that? Half a region is still very big. Brother Fa was slightly stunned and continued to say, half a region, that is the entire Myriad Kingdom continent. Haven't you noticed that the martial strength of the Bishing dynasty has increased a lot in the past year? As soon as Guo Shuefu's words came out, everyone was shocked. To increase the martial strength of the entire Myriad Kingdom continent, how perverted was that? But I heard that because the Bishing dynasty has become stronger, their luck has increased, so the martial strength has increased. One of the guards replied. Guo Shuefu smiled and shook her head. Not only the Bishing dynasty, but many countries also used this method to lie to their people. Because the reason for the increase in martial strength was only known to some experts, people like them were not qualified to know. And if it was because their country's luck had increased, it could not only stabilize the people's hearts, but also arouse their desire to cultivate and become stronger. Anyway, for various reasons, this lie could only be beneficial to them. There was no harm in it at all. Although Guishuefu was unwilling to say more, everyone was not stupid and could guess the reason. Miss Gua, what is the reason for the increase in the martial strength of the entire continent? Brother Fa was the first to recover from the shock and asked the question on everyone's mind. It is because of a mysterious genius that has not appeared in 10,000 years. Gua Shuefu said with a touch of admiration in her eyes. Gua Shuefu naturally knew that there was more than a 90% chance that the heaven and earth anomaly was caused by the innate sacred martial spirit. During that time, she had been paying attention to this matter and wanted to know who this genius was. Or perhaps it was taken by some sect or country. But after the heaven and earth anomaly, the genius seemed to have disappeared without a trace. In the Myriad Kingdom continent, all the top forces were secretly investigating. However, up until now, not a single power had managed to find this genius. If it were not for the heaven and earth anomaly and the enhanced martial strength, many forces would have suspected that this genius did not exist at all. Chapter 324. What's the name of a genius that only appears once every 10,000 years? He must be very powerful, right? Yihao did not know that the genius that Guishuefu was talking about was himself, because he did not know that his formation of the innate sacred martial spirit body had caused a change in heaven and earth. In his opinion, this person must be very powerful to be able to cause the martial arts of the entire Myriad Kingdom continent to increase. He should be careful when dealing with such a person in the future. All the top forces of the Myriad Kingdom continent are looking for him, and he hasn't been found yet. Don't you think he's powerful? Guishuefu rolled her eyes at Yihao and asked. At the same time, she glanced at Yihao and said, "At least 10,000 times stronger than you. I'm just asking. Someone who is 10,000 times stronger than me hasn't been born yet." Yihao also curled his lips. It hurt his self-esteem to be said that by a beauty. In fact, in Guishuefu's opinion, not to mention Yihao, even Bai Yi was not comparable to that genius. If it weren't for her father, she would have worked hard to marry that genius for the rest of her life. That genius was the Prince Charming of her dreams. Every day, she dreamed that one day, that genius would appear in front of her and then say to her affectionately, "Marry me. I'll marry you." But after all, a dream was a dream. Reality was so cruel. If there were no accidents, she would have to marry Bai Yi after some time. But in her eyes, Bai Yi was just a good-for-nothing prince. If it weren't for the Bai Sheng sacred dynasty, Bai Yi would be nothing. So she had no feelings for Bai Yi at all, and even looked down on him. The only thing that could arouse her interest was Yihao, the assassin in the Bai Sheng sacred dynasty palace. But she was just curious about Yihao. She had always been curious about how Yihao entered the palace. One must know that the teleportation talisman of the palace was in the hands of some important people and would never appear in the hands of an outsider. But Yihao could use the teleportation talisman to teleport into the palace and dress up as Lu Ji. No one could tell that he was Lu Ji. It was Guishuefu. It seemed that to be able to do this, either Yihao was an expert or Yihao had some secret techniques. However, in her opinion, the latter was more important. Who on earth is he? Guishuefu looked at Yihao, only to discover that Yihao was also looking at her. "Miss Gua, who are you? How did we end up in such a secluded place?" Yihao looked at Guishuefu and asked. So many guards were afraid of her. After all, she was the woman that Bai Yi valued. And Yihao dared to stare at her so brazenly. Guishuefu couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. "You'll know when you get there." After saying that, Guishuefu took the lead and entered another teleportation portal. Yihao pursed his lips, but he didn't care about it. He was planning to find a chance to slip away and go back to the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty for revenge. This is the last teleportation formation. We'll probably have to fly for another half a day tomorrow before we arrive. Let's rest first. Guoshiwefu said after coming out of the teleportation array. The 10 of you will be on guard. The rest of you will rest. After finding a restaurant, Yi Hao ordered everyone. Yi Hao planned to escort Guoshiwefu back home to repay her. Then, he would find a chance to leave. Yes, everyone replied in unison and rushed into the restaurant. The eyes of Brother F.A. and the other elite disciples of the 8th Squad shone brightly. Their chance had come. Deputy Commander, you must be tired from the journey. We have prepared some food and wine to reward you. Please do us the honor. Yi Hao had just laid down on the bed and was thinking about the next step of his plan. After all, there were too many things that he needed to solve. Moreover, he had been feeling uneasy for the past few days. He was worried that something might happen to Yanlong country. Hence, he had asked Guan Yu about it. According to the news he had received, the Fire Dragon Empire had won almost every battle recently and hadn't encountered any obstacles. What's wrong? Yuan Guopeng, Zhang Fei, and the others have the protection of the ancient ruins. They should be fine. Emialian has Li Kuei's protection and Beast Monster Sect's secret assistance. She should be fine. Did something happen to Father? Yi Hao was a little upset. He didn't know what the problem was. Hearing the voice outside the door, Yi Hao threw his worries to the back of his head. How could these people be so kind? A few days ago, they were all gnashing their teeth in hatred. Then, their attitudes suddenly changed. Now, they even wanted to treat him to food. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. These people definitely didn't have good intentions. Yi Hao wanted to see what these people could do. Now that he was out of the palace, no one could threaten him. Hence, Yi Hao had no scruples. At most, he would kill these people and then escape. Wait a minute, I'm coming. Yi Hao shouted outside the door. However, he was lying on the bed and didn't show any signs of wanting to get up. He was exhausted these past few days. After all, he was in the palace. He had to be careful and let himself sleep first. Brother F.A., that vice commander, that kid will be here soon. The guard received Yi Hao's words and immediately went back to report. Good. Today, I'll send that kid to the Yellow Springs as a sacrifice to the vice commander and Brother Deng Lei. There were a dozen people in the room. They were all elite disciples of the 8th Squad. Their faces were filled with joy and anticipation. F.A. bro, is your medicine effective? One of the guards asked nervously. In fact, he wasn't the only one who was nervous. The rest of the people were also very nervous. After all, if there was a slight mistake, they might be killed by Yi Hao. Brother F.A. said confidently, "Don't worry. This pill is able to seal the cultivation of a peak martial emperor for an incense's time. It's not easy to get, and I only managed to get it by revealing the name of the 8th party." Actually, he was just bragging. This pill was given to the commander by E. The commander then gave it to Fatty, and he inadvertently found out about it. After Fatty was killed, he immediately ran to Fatty's residence. Sure enough, the heavens didn't let him down and let him get 2 pills. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get such powerful pills even if he had the name of the 8th Squad. However, he couldn't say all of this out loud. Brother F.A. is still the best. You can even get such powerful pills. That's right. Don't you know who Brother F.A. is? When we return to the palace, the vice commander position will definitely be Brother F.A.'s. That's right. I only respect Brother F.A. as the vice commander. Everyone else, get lost. Bang! Who are you asking to get lost? Suddenly, the door was kicked open and Yi Hao's voice could be heard. The group of people who were still laughing and sucking up to Brother F.A. immediately panicked. Don't, Vice Commander. I know my mistake. I said something wrong. Please forgive me. The guard who spoke last immediately knelt on the ground. All of you, get back to your rooms. Without my orders, no one is to come out. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Chapter 325. Slap yourself until I'm satisfied. Yi Hao glanced at the guard and walked straight to the dining table. Slap. The guard's eyes flashed with unwillingness. But there was nothing he could do. Yi Hao hadn't taken his medicine yet. They were no match for Yi Hao. They could only kneel on the ground and slap themselves. Bastard, I'll let you be arrogant. You'll suffer when the time comes. The guard's eyes were filled with unwillingness as he glared at Yi Hao's back. Deputy, Deputy Commander. Everyone stood up in fear when they saw Yi Hao walking towards them. They could only blame themselves for being careless. They were too engrossed in their conversation and forgot to set up a barrier. So they were worried about how much Yi Hao had heard. Why are you all standing up? Sit down, Yi Hao said with a smile. Everyone looked at each other and was about to sit down. But Yi Hao kicked the guard who was kneeling on the ground. Speak louder. I can't hear you. Bang. Crash. The guard immediately flew out and smashed onto the dining table. This brat must have done it on purpose. Everyone's first reaction was to dodge. Everyone had the same thought when they saw the table full of food and wine destroyed. As for Brother F.A., his heart was bleeding. This elixir was wasted just like that. Little brat, you want to fight with me? Let's see what other tricks you can play. Yi Hao laughed in his heart. Of course, he had heard everything the guards said, but he wasn't in a hurry to kill them. He just wanted to have some fun with them. I'm sorry. I used too much force. Yi Hao apologized with a smile, but his tone didn't sound like he was sorry at all. Did you use too much force? You were kicking him to death. How can a martial monarch not be able to control his own strength? He must have done it on purpose. Everyone had the same thought when they saw the guard pass out. However, they were also muttering in their hearts. What exactly was Yi Hao up to? Had he heard about the matter of them drugging him? For a moment, everyone lowered their heads, not daring to look at Yi Hao. They were all thinking nervously. By the way, other than this brat, was there anyone else who was bad-mouthing me just now? Yi Hao raised his eyebrows and pretended not to hear their conversation. Hearing Yi Hao's words, everyone was relieved. Deputy Commander, you're right. We wouldn't dare to speak ill of you. Yi Hao's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction. Why? Am I very old? It's all my fault for speaking wrongly. Deputy Commander isn't old. Deputy Commander isn't old at all. When the guard saw the dissatisfaction on Yi Hao's face and then looked at the unconscious guard on the ground, he gritted his teeth and slapped himself hard on the face. Half of his face instantly swelled up. At least hit him to this extent. Yi Hao nodded with satisfaction. You want to play with me? I will play with you until you die. Yi Hao sneered. If he killed them directly, it would be too easy for them. We will remember. All the guards nodded their heads. After all, they couldn't win against Yi Hao. What else could they do? They could only compromise for now. That's right, they were compromising. Everyone found an excuse for themselves. Deputy Commander, please wait for a moment. I will ask someone to prepare a new set of dishes. Brother F.A. rolled his eyes and asked Yi Hao for instructions. Go ahead. Yi Hao didn't seem to be on guard at all. He nodded his head and agreed. Commander, please wait for a moment. I will go now. Brother F.A. was happy. He laughed secretly. I will let you be arrogant for a while. See how I will deal with you later. Come. Deputy Commander, please take a seat. Let me massage your legs. Deputy Commander, let me massage your shoulders. When a group of guards saw Brother F.A. leave, they knew what Brother F.A. was doing. They were excited when they thought about Yi Hao's fate. In order to ease the awkwardness, they all rushed to massage Yi Hao. Not bad. Yi Hao closed his eyes and hummed comfortably. Putting everything else aside, if this group of martial emperors and martial grand emperors were thrown on Earth, they would definitely have a special skill. Their massage techniques were definitely top-notch. Could this be self-taught? Yi Hao thought to himself with a smile. I will let you enjoy it for a while. See how we will deal with you later. Many of the guards looked at Yi Hao, who had his eyes closed. Each of them wished they could immediately cut Yi Hao into pieces. They were the imperial guards of the Baisheng dynasty, and they were part of Team Monarch. Now, they were massaging an enemy. Furthermore, they were being so obsequious. To them, this was an absolute humiliation. However, when they thought about how Yi Hao's martial arts would be sealed and they would be at their mercy, they were filled with motivation. The dishes are here. Brother F.A. came in with a group of waiters and a table full of dishes. Commander, you can't waste any more food. We have used up all the dishes in this restaurant. Brother F.A. was really scared of Yi Hao. There were only 2 pills in total, and he had already put the last one into the dishes. If Yi Hao overturned the dishes again, then he wouldn't have any medicinal pills left and would have no way to deal with Yi Hao. What are you talking about? Do I look like a wasteful person? Yi Hao asked unhappily. If you say so, I won't eat anymore. I will save some for you. Just as Yi Hao was about to finish speaking, he stood up and walked out. With his temper, he definitely meant what he said. Don't, Deputy Commander. Brother F.A. felt like he was going to cry. Was it easy for him? He just wanted to drug Yi Hao. Why was it so difficult? Brother F.A. was really afraid that Yi Hao would leave. Not only would he waste his pills, but he would also waste his painstaking plan. It would be even harder to find another opportunity in the future. Moreover, he had no more pills. If you want me to stay, you have to punish yourselves with 3 cups of wine. Yi Hao stopped and said to everyone, Ugh. Everyone knew that Brother F.A. had drugged them. If they drank the wine, wouldn't their cultivation be sealed as well? So, they must not drink this wine. If you don't drink it, will there be a problem with the wine? Yi Hao suddenly looked at everyone with a strange expression and took out his weapon. He looked like he was going to start a fight at any moment. How can there be a problem with the wine? Seeing Yi Hao take out his weapon, Brother F.A. was afraid and wanted to explain. If you don't drink it, there is a problem. Yi Hao said firmly. We will drink it. Brother F.A. gritted his teeth. They had to get through this first. They were really afraid that Yi Hao would suddenly attack them. After all, Yi Hao dared to kill their deputy commander in the palace. They were outside the palace. Who knew what Yi Hao would do? After saying that, everyone closed their eyes and drank the wine. Deputy Commander, there is really no problem with the wine. Brother F.A. didn't forget to explain. Actually, he was still hoping that Yi Hao would drink it. Chapter 326. Then I won't refuse. Yi Hao nodded his head and took the glass from Brother F.A.'s hand. Drink it quickly. Drink it quickly. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation. They could guess what Brother F.A. was planning. But we are on duty. It's not good to drink. Everyone's gaze was focused on Yi Hao. But just as Yi Hao's wine glass was about to reach his mouth, Yi Hao suddenly put down the wine glass. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Commander, we are all warriors. This kind of mortals, wine has no effect on us. Just drink it. Brother F.A. wiped his cold sweat and continued to persuade him. Oh, is that so? All right then. Yi Hao had a look of realization and raised the wine glass again. Drink, master. Why don't you drink it? Everyone's heart was in their throat again. They were waiting for Yi Hao to drink the wine quickly. Since it's a mortal's wine, there's no point in drinking it. Forget it. I'll go back and cultivate. Yi Hao thought for a while and put down the wine glass again. At this moment, not only Brother F.A., all the guards wanted to cry. Damn it. Can you not torture us like this? Commander, since you're already here, why don't you give us some face? We all admire you a lot. Brother F.A. persuaded Yi Hao while flattering Yi Hao. He was just one step away. He couldn't let his efforts go to waste. No matter what, he had to make Yi Hao drink the wine and seal Yi Hao's cultivation. Only then would he have a chance to turn the tables. But with all of you looking at me, I can't drink it. Yi Hao said with a bitter smile as he looked at everyone's eager eyes staring straight at him. Yi Hao couldn't help but sigh. How much did these people hate him? How much did they want to kill him? Everyone was speechless. They didn't expect Yi Hao to have such a hobby. However, since they had already reached this stage, the problem at hand was to coax Yi Hao into drinking the wine. Brothers, hurry up and turn around. Let the commander have a good drink, Brother F.A. said to the crowd. He especially emphasized the last few words. Everyone understood what Brother F.A. meant. Although they were a little worried, as long as Yi Hao could drink it, they were fine with anything. Chilu, I haven't had this in a long time. This wine tastes pretty good. It's just that it tastes weird. Yi Hao asked curiously as Yi Hao's mouth made a slurping noise. Everyone turned around and looked at Yi Hao. Brother F.A. held back his excitement and asked carefully, Commander, did you drink the wine? Drink it. Yi Hao turned the wine glass upside down. It was empty. Commander, you really drank it? Another guard asked worriedly. However, his face was filled with joy and excitement. Why would I lie to you? Yi Hao said sincerely. It's all right, Commander. You should eat first. Brother F.A. was no longer as restrained as before. However, the effect of the medicine wouldn't take effect so soon. Hence, he had to delay Yi Hao. I have something to do later. I'll leave for a while. Yi Hao was about to sit down, but Yi Hao suddenly stood up and said with a bad expression, "The medicine is taking effect." Everyone was overjoyed. Since the effects of the pill had already taken effect, Brother Fa's pill was definitely effective. If they weren't careful, they would have beaten up Yi Hao to vent their anger. However, Yi Hao's reputation still occupied their hearts. Hence, they didn't dare to make a move. Seeing Yi Hao's expression suddenly change, everyone knew that the medicine was taking effect. "Sai, Commander, don't be anxious. We haven't eaten yet." A guard tried to stop Yi Hao. "What? You want to stop me?" Yi Hao said angrily. However, he didn't have any intention to make a move. It's a success. Everyone thought excitedly when they saw Yi Hao's expression. "All right, Lu Ji, stop pretending." The guard sneered at Yi Hao. "Get out of my way. Otherwise, you can imagine the consequences." Yi Hao looked at the guard and said coldly, "Ha ha." Everyone laughed in unison. According to Yi Hao's personality, he definitely wouldn't talk so much nonsense. He would definitely have picked up his weapon. Wasn't Yi Hao wasting so much effort just for the sake of escaping? "Lu, I've tolerated you for a long time. Your cultivation must have been sealed. I think you should stop pretending." Brother Fa said directly to Yi Hao. "Oh, you did something to the wine. But didn't you drink it too?" Yi Hao asked curiously. "Ah, you idiot. Only now did you realize it. But it's too late. As for us, we also drank the wine. Do you think you can defeat more than 10 of us? Now that everyone's cultivation is sealed, do you think we're still afraid of you?" Brother Fa said as he looked at Yi Hao proudly. The rest of the guards were also rubbing their fists. They wanted to give Yi Hao a good beating. They had been waiting for this day for too long. Finally, this day came. They could vent their frustrations. "Brothers, don't be hasty. We need to torture this kid. We need to let him know the power of our 8th squad." Brother Fa immediately stopped them when he saw that everyone was eager to make a move. At the same time, he took out several torture tools. He wanted to use these tools to torture Yi Hao. "Brilliant, Brother Fa is really brilliant. Brother Fa, you're so thoughtful. Brother Fa, you're too cruel. But I like it. Hee hee." Everyone looked at the torture devices in the room. They were all impressed by Brother Fa, and they couldn't stop praising him. "In order to punish this arrogant bastard, I have indeed put in a lot of effort," Brother Fa said proudly when he heard everyone's praises. "So many torture tools. Which one do you guys want to use first?" Yi Hao interrupted them when he saw that everyone was talking so enthusiastically that they seemed to have forgotten about him. However, these people were really good. They had prepared everything. Coincidentally, he was still worried about how to torture them. He didn't expect that they had already prepared everything. It saved him a lot of trouble. "You shut up. You have no right to speak here. Stay here and be obedient." Now that Yi Hao's cultivation was sealed, no one was afraid of Yi Hao. One of the guards glanced at Yi Hao and said fiercely, "Ha ha, brothers, did you see that? This kid is anxious." Brother Fa laughed when he heard Yi Hao's words. Then Brother Fa, "Let's use that torture tool first." One of the guards quickly asked. It was obvious that Brother Fa was the leader. "Let's use this. Anyway, I want to try all of these tools on this kid." Brother Fa picked up a torture tool and said fiercely, "Brother Fa, let me do it." The guard who slapped himself in the face immediately begged Brother Fa with his mouth still slurred. Chapter 3:27. "Brat, why don't you beg me? Maybe I'll be happy and go easy on you." After getting permission from Brother Fa, the guard picked up his torture tool and started to close in on Yi Hao. "Where should I start?" The guard rubbed his palms and laughed sinisterly. "Are you sure you chose this?" Yi Hao looked at the torture tool in the guard's hand and asked softly without any fear, "Why? Is there a problem?" When the guard saw that Yi Hao was so calm, he was also stunned and asked with a confused expression, "Under normal circumstances, shouldn't Yi Hao be scared and kneel in front of him and beg for mercy?" "No problem. Do it yourself." Yi Hao smiled and shook his head. He crossed his arms and said to the guard, "F***CKU. You tricked me." The guard thought that he was tricked by Yi Hao. His face was filled with anger and he rushed towards Yi Hao. Pah! The guard only saw a blur in front of his eyes. Then he heard a crisp sound and felt that the other side of his face was swollen. You dare to hit me? The guard couldn't believe that Yi Hao still dared to hit him when he couldn't even protect himself. Are you sure you drank the wine? Brother Fa didn't see how Yi Hao hit him, so he asked again. Yi Hao looked at the crowd quietly and didn't say a word. Brother Fa, I think this brat is purposely playing tricks. Let's beat him up first. A guard shouted angrily. Go! No matter what, Brother Fa could only grit his teeth and give the order. Brat, get down on the ground. Bastard, I've tolerated you for a long time. I'm going to beat you up until your mother can't even recognize you. Brothers, break this brat's hands. Let's see if he still dares to hit me. A group of guards under the command of Fa raised their fists and wanted to punch Yi Hao. Xiaoqing, what was that noise? Guo Xuefu, who was cultivating cross-legged, suddenly opened her eyes and asked gently. Although the power of martial arts here was thin, she had been cultivating every day and it had become a necessary habit for her. She knew that if she wanted to get rid of her shackles, the only way was to cultivate. Although the chances were slim, the path of cultivation was too difficult. Moreover, she was going to marry Bai Yi. She didn't have a chance, because if she married Bai Yi, she would be bound to him forever. Perhaps when Bai Yi came back, it would be the time her life would be fixed. Although she didn't have much time and hope, she didn't want to give up. She knew that if she gave up, she would really be like a chess piece. She would be at the mercy of others, and she would have to spend the rest of her life with a hedonistic prince that she didn't love. However, what she didn't know was that Bai Yi, whom she had guarded day and night against, had long been killed by Yi Hao. Are they from the 2nd squad or the 8th squad? They are from the 8th squad. Xiaoqing answered with a hint of disdain in her eyes. The 8th squad is called Team Monarch. They have such a good relationship. Look at them now. They're trying to curry favor with someone who killed their deputy commander. I think Team Monarch doesn't live up to their reputation. Xiaoqing's tone was full of contempt for the 8th squad. Oh no. Xiaoqing, come with me. Guo Xuefu frowned. She suddenly stood up with an anxious look on her face. Since the 8th squad was called Team Monarch, they must have their own strengths. They were definitely not as weak as Xiaoqing made them out to be. At first, she was curious as to why the 8th squad acted as if nothing had happened after Yi Hao had killed so many of them. Even now, they were still indifferent. Therefore, Guo Xuefu guessed that the 8th squad must be plotting something. They definitely wouldn't curry favor with Yi Hao for no reason and even treat Yi Hao to a drink. If it was because of Yi Hao's position as the deputy commander, it was obviously not enough. This was because the commander of the 8th squad was still alive and well. He was someone that even the senior commander was wary of. The members of the 8th squad wouldn't be so foolish as to fawn on Yi Hao at this moment. When the time came, the commander would definitely not let them off. These people definitely knew which was more important. Although they could not defeat Yi Hao, they could stay far away from Yi Hao. There was no need for them to curry favor with Yi Hao and treat Yi Hao to a drink. Therefore, Guo Xuefu could tell at a glance that something was wrong. Young miss, what could have happened? Xiaoqing followed her with a puzzled look. Cut the crap. I have a feeling that those guys are going to deal with Lu Ji. Guo Xuefu said anxiously. She had a good impression of Lu Ji. Although he was not as good as the mysterious genius in her heart, he was still an interesting person. She could not let him die. All of you kneel down. Yi Hao let out a roar all of a sudden as his martial force burst out from his body, suppressing the figures of the crowd. At this moment, everyone was stunned. They were pressed to the ground by Yi Hao's power. How is this possible? Wasn't your cultivation sealed? You lied to us. You didn't drink that cup of wine. Kid, you're too sinister. Yi Hao looked at the guard strangely and said with a smile, You wanted to drug me, and you're saying that I'm sinister? I think these torture tools are not bad. You could try them yourselves. Yi Hao glanced at the dozen torture tools on the table. It was just enough for each person to have one. No way. You want us to torture ourselves? The guard was afraid that he had misheard and looked at Yi Hao in disbelief. Do you have a choice? Yi Hao asked with a smile. At this moment, everyone's cultivation was sealed. All of them were like ordinary people. If Yihao wanted to kill them, it would be easier than killing an ant. Kid, dream on. Even if I die, I won't torture myself. One of them shouted with a strong attitude. Then go to hell, Yihao said coldly. As soon as Yihao finished speaking, a blast of air shot out from his body and hit the martial artist. The martial artist's body instantly exploded. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for killing Emperor Wu. Everyone immediately took a step back. Yihao glanced at everyone. Hurry up and choose. My time is precious. I don't mind giving you a ride. Commander, Brother Fa looked at Yihao gloomily. Chapter 328. Commander, we need others to help us with these torture tools. We can't do it ourselves. Brother Fa said as he looked at the torture tools. That's right, Commander. We can't do it ourselves. As soon as Brother Fa finished his words, everyone started to complain, hoping that they could escape this ordeal. Because this was too torturous. You can't do it like this. Being tortured was already painful enough. Now, they had to torture themselves. Was there anything worse than this in the world? At this moment, everyone regretted messing with Yihao. So you guys are choosing to die? Yihao said as he took out his weapon and looked at everyone. That's not what I meant. I'll do it myself. I think it's better if I do it myself. Looking at Yihao's murderous words, Brother Fa took out a small chopping board. There were nails on the board. He gritted his teeth and stabbed them into his arm. Brother Fa took a deep breath and screamed in pain. You son of a bitch, I will never let you go, Brother Fa thought angrily as the intense pain pierced through his brain. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the torture instruments he had prepared were actually prepared for himself. What about you guys? Yihao looked at Brother Fa without any pity. He then looked at everyone else. They deserved it. They couldn't blame themselves. We'll do it ourselves. We'll do it ourselves. Everyone panicked. None of them dared to look at Yihao. They all took out different torture tools and placed them on themselves. At this moment, the whole room was filled with screams. Emperor Wu's martial emperors took out their own torture tools and placed them on themselves. If anyone saw this, they would be shocked. Bang! Stop it! Guo Shuefu was really worried that something might have happened to Yihao. She came to the door and kicked it open without a care in the world. She shouted, Here, you guys continue. Looking at the scene inside, Yihao stood aside as if nothing had happened. The rest of the people were holding different kinds of torture instruments in their hands, and they were using them on Guo Shuefu. Guo Shuefu was confused. Seeing that Yihao was fine, Guo Shuefu was relieved and left at once. Miss Guo, save us. When everyone saw Guo Shuefu, it was as if they had seen a life-saving straw. They desperately wailed. In the end, Guo Shuefu acted as if she did not see them and directly closed the door. Is there still justice in this world? They had all heard that Yihao had a good relationship with Guo Shuefu, but this time they saw it with their own eyes. Shut up and continue. Yihao didn't hold back and kicked Brother Fa's head away. Yes, Brother Fa held back the tears in his heart and used the chopping board to cut himself. Why are my eyes wet? Brother Fa grimaced in pain. I'll give you a chance. Swear allegiance to me and I'll spare your lives. At this moment, talents were resources, but Yihao could not bear to use the mind control pill, so he could only think of a compromise. If they don't swear, then they can't blame him. Everyone sat on the ground, exhausted. They were all panting and thinking about Yihao's words. If it was in the past, they would just die and not swear. But now, after being tortured by Yihao, their minds were really broken. They could not even muster up the will to resist. We swear, more than 10 people said at the same time. After saying this, a few of them relaxed and fell to the ground one by one. All of you, go here and help me guard this place. If anything happens, I'll take your lives. Yihao had been feeling uneasy. He was always worried that something would happen to the Fire Dragon Empire. No matter what, that place was his own base. There were his own people there, so that place was very important to Yihao. Although the Fire Dragon Empire was still weak, he believed that soon the flag of the Fire Dragon Empire would be planted in every corner of the 10,000 land continent. We will definitely atone for our sins. Brother Fa took some letters from Yihao and said one by one. Just now, they swore that they knew Yihao's true identity. They did not expect that Yihao would be so bold as to sneak into the Bai Sheng dynasty's palace. My lord, you killed the deputy commander and so many people of the 8th Squad. Commander Zheng and His Highness Bai Yi will not let you go. So you better not return to the Bai Sheng dynasty. Brother Fa thought for a while and advised, because he had already sworn that his fate was tied to Yihao. It could be said that if one fell, all would fall. Now let me go. I won't let him go. Yihao sneered. He and the Bai Sheng dynasty were irreconcilable. He must destroy the Bai Sheng dynasty with his own hands. He must kill the Bai Sheng king and old Bai with his own hands. Compared to the Bai Sheng king and the old monster behind the Bai Sheng dynasty, Commander Zheng was nothing in Yihao's eyes. You guys leave tonight. I will spread the news that you tried to assassinate me and were killed by me. For the time being, you have to hide your names. Yihao said to the dozen people. If these people swaggered into the Flame Dragon Empire openly, they might be discovered by the Bishing Holy Dynasty if they weren't careful. At that time, it was more likely that they would bring disaster to the Fire Dragon Empire. Therefore, it was undoubtedly the best way to hide their identities. When the time came, Guoshuefu would help to smooth things over. No one would turn the world upside down just to find a few guards. Yes, my lord. Wait for our cultivation to recover. Brother Fa and the others immediately took out elixirs to heal their injuries. After a while, their sealed cultivation would slowly recover. After more than half an hour, everyone's cultivation had basically recovered. After bidding farewell to Yihao, they flew in the direction of the Fire Dragon Empire. Looking at the backs of these people leaving, Yihao also wanted to go back. But if he went back now, it would only limit his development, and it would be harmful to him. After all, the Fire Dragon Empire was too small, and there wasn't enough resources for him to develop. Let's hope nothing bad happens. Brother Fa and the others were the elites of the 8th team. So, the weakest of them was Emperor Wu. Half of them were First-Order Martial Emperors, and Brother Fa was Second-Order Martial Emperor. If this force was placed in the Level 8 area, it would definitely turn the world upside down. As long as they didn't encounter too big of a problem, Yihao believed that these people would be able to protect the Fire Dragon Empire. After he was done with the matters of the Beast Monster sect and the Bai Sheng dynasty, he had to make a trip to Gedanzan to get a holy elixir to treat the Nangong Wentian. No matter what, the Nangong Wentian was an old man by Yi Beishan's side. Later, he was seriously injured for the sake of the Fire Dragon Empire. No matter what, he had to treat the Nangong Wentian. Chapter 329. The current ruler was the younger brother of the former ruler of the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom. His strength was only at the Martial King realm, and the gap between him and his brother was not small. Otherwise, the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom would not have declined day by day. A year ago, more than half of the top forces of the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom had been taken away by his brother, and they had never returned. Although he had gotten his wish and become the ruler of the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom, it could be said that he did not have a good day. Every day, he was busy with all kinds of things. In the past, no matter what, his brother was still at the martial spirit realm. Coupled with his mount, the Dark Knight Heavenly Wolf, he was an existence that could sweep through a region. The surrounding small kingdoms all bowed their heads, and even some kingdoms of the same level had to fear the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom. At that time, the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom was in the limelight, and even had hopes of becoming a spirit rank faction. But a year ago, after his brother left, the strength of the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not only the king rank kingdoms that had been suppressed by the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom, but even those small factions that had submitted to the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom. They had actually changed sides in a period of time. That was one thing. What he could not tolerate the most was that these factions actually dared to show their greedy claws and fangs to the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom. It was like a servant betraying his master and stealing his master's property. It made him gnash his teeth in hatred, but he could not spare the time to deal with them. Although the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom did not care about these small factions at all, But those king-rank kingdoms and factions made him have no choice but to pay attention to them. In just half a month, he had actually received 3 threatening letters of challenge. The meaning was that he had to give up 10 cities, or they would send troops to attack his Heavenly Wolf Kingdom. If it was the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom of the past, they would have been able to disdain these 3 kingdoms. But now was not the past. The Heavenly Wolf Kingdom could no longer produce experts. If the 3 kingdoms attacked the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom at this time, the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom would definitely be in danger of being destroyed at any time. But if he had to give up 30 cities, he would not be willing to do so in his heart. These 30 cities were almost a fifth of the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom's territory. Moreover, if he were to easily give up so many cities, his prestige would definitely plummet. Although he did not have much prestige in the past, giving up so much territory for no reason would definitely cause a rebellion. This was because he had already received news that many factions and officials within the Celestial Wolf Kingdom had begun to make small movements. All of them were beginning to become restless. However, he didn't have any evidence at all, and he couldn't push these people too hard, so he could only turn a blind eye now. That damned Fire Dragon Empire. The current Tianlang Emperor had a love-hate relationship with the Fire Dragon Empire. He loved her because the Fire Dragon Empire had killed his older brother. That was why he could get what he wanted and become the emperor. He hated the fact that the Fire Dragon Empire had killed almost all of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom's experts and left him with a huge problem. According to his plan, he had to send troops to attack the Fire Dragon Empire in order to vent his anger. But now, he didn't even have the ability to protect himself. How could he have the strength to attack the Fire Dragon Empire? What should I do? The Tianlang Emperor frowned as he looked at the 3 letters of challenge in front of him. He didn't know what to do. Now that he was surrounded by enemies, every step he took was like treading on thin ice. If he wasn't careful, the Celestial Wolf Kingdom would be destroyed at his hands. What are you worried about, Tianlang Emperor? A few men in black suddenly appeared in the hall. One of them asked with a smile, "Who are you people?" The Tianlang Emperor was startled. He carefully looked at the men in black, but he couldn't see through their cultivation bases. "May I know why you have come to my small Celestial Wolf Kingdom? Is there anything I can help you with?" The Tianlang Emperor asked cautiously as he got up. The Sky Wolf ruler felt a sense of helplessness in front of these people, so he didn't call for his guards. The people in front of him could definitely kill him in an instant. You don't have to care who we are. However, we can restore your kingdom to its former glory. We can even upgrade it, one of the men said softly. The Tianlang Emperor believed that there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. A trace of hesitation appeared on his face. After all, a year ago, his elder brother had met with a man in black and never returned. That was how the Tianlang Kingdom ended up in its current state. Therefore, he didn't want to repeat the same mistake. The Tianlang Emperor said cautiously, "Thank you for your kind intentions, but don't be in a hurry to refuse. If we don't help you, your kingdom will be in danger." The man in black immediately interrupted the Tianlang Emperor's refusal. "And we can help you take care of those small kingdoms that are an eyesore." The man in black continued when he saw the Tianlang Emperor's hesitation. "Why did you choose me?" The Tianlang Emperor believed that these men in black definitely had the strength to do so. The man in black saw that the Tianlang Emperor was tempted and said, nonchalantly, "It's nothing. I just find you more pleasing to the eye. That's it." The Tianlang Emperor couldn't help but look at the man in black a few more times. "That's it," the Tianlang Emperor continued to ask. "Then what can I do for you?" He didn't believe that there would be such a kind person in the world who would help him just because he found him pleasing to the eye without asking for anything in return. "You don't need to know that for now. You just need to take over the city." The man in black didn't wait for the Tianlang Emperor's response and immediately flew out with his men. "Take over the city?" The Tianlang Emperor was puzzled, not understanding the meaning behind the man in black's words. Looking at the empty hall and the 3 letters of challenge on the table, the Tianlang Emperor sighed. "I hope the Tianlang Kingdom will be destroyed by my hands. We pay our respects to the Tianlang Emperor. Long live the Tianlang Emperor. My beloved subjects, Is there a happy occasion? The Tianlang Emperor asked in confusion as he looked at the joyful faces of the civil and military officials before him. It had been a few months since the Tianlang Emperor's inauguration. Every day at court, the civil and military officials looked as if their parents had died. To the Tianlang Emperor, the last thing he wanted was to attend court. Every time he attended court, he had to hear some bad news. Either some faction had announced that it no longer belonged to the Tianlang kingdom, or some faction had been defeated. Your Majesty, the Olga kingdom has announced that it belongs to the Tianlang kingdom unconditionally. From now on, it will be under the command of the Tianlang kingdom. Your Majesty, the Blue River kingdom has also announced that it belongs to the Tianlang kingdom unconditionally. Your Majesty, the Yusi kingdom has also. Several important officials spoke one after another, the excitement on their faces indescribable. What? The Tianlang Emperor was also moved. The three kingdoms that the officials had mentioned were the ones that had threatened the Tianlang kingdom with 10 cities. Chapter 330. Your Majesty, this is the imperial edict to declare their allegiance. An official immediately handed over the edict in his hand. Good. Send troops to take over these cities. The celestial wolf monarch saw the seal on the edict. There was no mistaking it. At this moment, he finally recalled why those black-clothed men had told him to accept the city before they left. It turned out that they wanted to take over the cities of these kingdoms. However, the strength of these men in black was imaginable. They were able to make 3 kingdoms that had already revealed their claws and fangs surrender in a short period of time. At this critical juncture, they had unconditionally declared their allegiance, and even carved out 20 cities for a total of 60 cities. This had expanded the Celestial Wolf Kingdom's territory by 1/3 without the loss of a single soldier. In the past, he wouldn't even have dared to dream of this, but now it was happening. But for some reason, he couldn't bring himself to be happy. So His Majesty has been operating in secret all this time. We were frogs in a well. His Majesty is indeed His Majesty. He actually made 3 kingdoms surrender unconditionally without us knowing. Based on this situation, there is hope for the Celestial Wolf Kingdom to become a spirit-level kingdom. Long live the Celestial Wolf Monarch. All the civil and military officials discussed in low voices before suddenly kneeling on the ground and shouting in unison. Your Excellencies, may I know what you need this humble king to do? After court was dismissed, the Celestial Wolf Monarch returned to his chambers. As expected, the Dark Knight powerhouses were already waiting for him. Ha! I didn't choose the wrong person. You are indeed a smart man. The man in black laughed. Thank you for the praise, Your Excellency. The Celestial Wolf Monarch smiled wryly. I want you to send troops to encircle and annihilate the Fire Dragon Empire, the man in black said softly. The Fire Dragon Empire? Could you be? The Celestial Wolf Monarch's heart skipped a beat at the mention of the Fire Dragon Empire. The Celestial Wolf Kingdom had fallen to its current state. His brother's death couldn't be unrelated to the Fire Dragon Empire. Looking at the man in black, the Celestial Wolf Monarch immediately recalled the man in black his brother had received a year ago. There was probably a connection between the two. You're smart, but it's better if you don't know what you shouldn't know. The black-robed man suddenly said in a cold voice. His powerful aura pressed down on the Tianlang heavenly monarch. The Tianlang dynasty ruler felt as though he was about to die. He hurriedly apologized. My lord, please have mercy on me. I shouldn't have asked. This is just a warning. The black-clothed man snorted and immediately withdrew his aura. Yes, the Tianlang dynasty's ruler immediately lowered his head. Now, he finally knew that the gap between him and the black-clothed man was not an ordinary kind of big, but what made him curious was that this flame dragon empire, as far as he knew, was just a duchy. How did they provoke so many experts? What puzzled him even more was why these experts didn't directly attack the Fire Dragon Empire. Instead, he had come to help him and then asked him to attack the Fire Dragon Empire. Wasn't this an unnecessary move? However, after the warning just now, Even if he had thousands of questions in his heart, he didn't dare to ask anymore. Don't worry, as long as you do as I say, you'll get a lot more than what you're getting now. The black-clothed man didn't forget to encourage him. I'll definitely listen to my lord's instructions. But the Fire Dragon Empire has the Fiend Spirit Kingdom and the Fire Empire as their backing. He had investigated the Fire Dragon Empire's background. If he rashly attacked the Fire Dragon Empire, he wouldn't be able to bear the wrath of the Fire Dragon Empire. It's just a small empire. You don't have to worry. The black-clothed man's tone was full of disdain. Yes, the Tianlang dynasty's ruler was startled. An empire was an existence that he could only look up to. To him, it was an unreachable existence. But in the black-clothed man's words, it was like trash. He really couldn't imagine where these black-clothed men came from. Could they be from an emperor-level faction? Or perhaps a saint-level faction? At the thought of this, the Tianlang dynasty's ruler found it difficult to breathe. If these people were really from a saint-level faction, then his chance had really come. Humans were greedy. Emperors were humans too. His previous wish had been to protect the Tianlang dynasty from being devoured. That would have been enough. Then, he would have been satisfied with being a slave for the rest of his life. But these black-clothed men before him had reignited his desire. He wanted to become stronger. He wanted the Tianlang dynasty to become stronger. Very good. I like people with desires. As long as you're obedient, it's not impossible for you to create an emperor-level faction. Seeing that the Tianlang dynasty's ruler's desire had been aroused, the black-clothed man laughed heartily. What do you want me to do? The Tianlang dynasty's ruler asked the black-clothed man. I want you to send troops to slowly encircle the Fire Dragon Empire. Remember, don't be too hasty. My goal is to lure someone out. The black-clothed man instructed the Tianlang dynasty's ruler. He didn't forget to remind him, don't expose our existence. As for any potential dangers, we'll deal with them for you. We'll always be by your side. If there's anything you can't handle, you can come to us. Sirs, please rest for a moment. I'll go prepare the troops to attack the Fire Dragon Empire. The Tianlang dynasty's ruler wanted to show off in front of these people, so he couldn't wait to speak. Well done. Go. One of the black-clothed men nodded in agreement. Humph. A mere ruler of a small kingdom dares to call himself sirs in front of us. He really doesn't know what's good for him. After the Tianlang dynasty's ruler left, one of the black-clothed men snorted coldly. Let him be. He's just a chess piece in our hands. There's no need to care so much. Right now, the most important thing is to lure out the owner of the heavenly Een spirit, the leader of the black-clothed men said. Secmaster, you're right, the black-clothed man immediately said respectfully. Secmaster, what do you think the owner of the heavenly Een spirit is hiding? What if he doesn't come out? The black-clothed man asked worriedly. As far as I know, the Fire Dragon Empire is developing very quickly. The citizens have a strong sense of belonging. I'm guessing that this person must be a good ruler. If he doesn't come out, I'll wipe out the entire Fire Dragon Empire. A sinister glint flashed in the sect master's eyes. Living in the Myriad Kingdom continent, is there really someone who would risk his life for the sake of his citizens? The black-clothed man shook his head. Clearly, he wasn't optimistic that Yi Hao would come out. No matter what, the Patriarch has given a death order. We must find this person. Otherwise, we won't have a good life. The sect master didn't forget to warn his subordinates when he saw their lack of confidence. We must catch this person. Chapter 331. I wonder why your majesty has summoned us in the middle of the night. The celestial wolf king had ascended the throne for almost a year, but he had never summoned them in the middle of the night. And during the day, the three kingdoms had submitted to the heavenly wolf dynasty, causing everyone to feel a trace of respect and admiration for the heavenly wolf dynasty's ruler. Thus, when the celestial wolf king summoned them, they immediately rushed to the imperial palace. Pass on our decree. Mobilize the entire nation's forces to attack the Fire Dragon Empire. The celestial wolf king said domineeringly from his throne. What? Is there a need to mobilize so many troops against a duchy? Your Majesty, What should we do about the faction behind the Fire Dragon Empire? If we attack recklessly, we will be attacked fiercely. Mobilizing the entire nation's forces means you have at least 3 million soldiers. This expenditure is enormous. I'm afraid it will be difficult for the army to move out in a short period of time. Thus, none of the officials had expected the Celestial Wolf King to make such a decision. They all voiced their concerns. The officials looked at each other and all knelt on the ground. Your Majesty, please reconsider. There is no need for further words. I have already made up my mind. Go to the other 3 kingdoms and mobilize them to attack the Fire Dragon Empire. The Celestial Wolf King's attitude was unyielding. With a black-clothed man protecting him, he had nothing to worry about. But will the other 3 kingdoms agree? One of the officials asked worriedly. After all, this was an all-out attack. Who would be willing to do such a thing unless something major had happened? Although they didn't know why the other 3 kingdoms had suddenly pledged allegiance to the Celestial Wolf Kingdom, they were still ordered to do so. Would they agree to an all-out attack? Disagree? Do they dare? The Celestial Wolf King sneered at the officials' question. This, we obey. The officials didn't know where the Celestial Wolf King's confidence came from, but they didn't dare to refuse the Celestial Wolf King's unyielding tone. To the surprise of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom's officials, the other 3 kingdoms unconditionally obeyed the Celestial Wolf King's decree. The 3 kingdoms had gathered a total of 6 million soldiers. They divided into 3 directions and slowly advanced toward the Fire Dragon Empire like a flood. As for why it was so slow, it was obviously because of the Heavenly Wolf Emperor's orders. But in the span of a single night, almost every single army had swept through a single city. This was a deliberate order from the Heavenly Wolf Emperor. Otherwise, the Fire Dragon Empire would have lost all of its territory in an instant. Reporting to the Great General, there are 2 million troops in the south, and they have already taken down one of our cities. Reporting to the Great General, there are 2 million troops in the north. They have also taken down one of our cities. Reporting to the Great General, there are 3 million troops in the east. They have also occupied one of our cities. Before dawn, Guan Yu was already in the barracks. All the soldiers in the barracks looked very solemn. What's the situation of the 4 cities that have been conquered? Guan Yu's face was already red. Now, he was so angry that his face turned a little dark. They were all. A general's face was somewhat sorrowful. What's wrong with all of them? Guan Yu immediately slapped the table and asked, The entire city has been massacred. What? You didn't even spare the civilians? Guan Yu's face became even gloomier. For kingdoms, I, Guan Yu, am not done with you. In the blink of an eye, 4 of his cities have been destroyed and even massacred. This made his heart ache. How is he going to explain this to his lord? Do you know why the 4 kingdoms are attacking us? Guan Yu immediately asked. Although the Fire Dragon Empire had been expanding, he had been very cautious. For example, he had never mentioned the name of the Fire Dragon Empire when he went on expeditions. Moreover, he hadn't provoked any king-level factions. He didn't understand why the 4 kingdoms had all besieged him in one night. We don't know. All the generals were depressed. Right now, there are still 1 million soldiers in the Fire Dragon Empire. It's obviously not enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of the 9 million enemy soldiers. Guan Yu pondered for a moment and said, The rest of the army is too far away from the Fire Dragon Empire. I'm afraid they won't be able to retreat in time. On the surface, the Fire Dragon Empire only had 1 million soldiers. However, secretly, there were already more than 20 million soldiers. This terrifying number was comparable to the strength of an empire. However, the quality of the soldiers might not be as good. However, in Guan Yu's opinion, it was more than enough to deal with the 9 million enemy soldiers. However, the soldiers were too far away. If he wanted them all to return, it would take at least 10 days to half a month. At most, it would take a few months. Guan Yu was worried that it would be too late to gather all the soldiers back. Go and ask the Fiend Spirit Kingdom and the Fire Empire for help. We can't let them eat so many of our tributes for nothing. Guan Yu instructed a general. At the same time, gather the rest of the armies. Have them rush back to the Fire Dragon Empire day and night. "Great General, I feel that we should inform our lord about this." Guan Yu gave several orders. One of the generals pondered for a while before speaking up. "Our lord's foresight is amazing." Hearing the general's words, Guan Yu suddenly remembered that Yi Hao had asked him if anything had happened in the Fire Dragon Empire. Could it be that this group of people is here to find our lord? Guan Yu guessed. This was because if the 9 million soldiers came together, they would be able to wipe out the Fire Dragon Empire in an instant. However, it didn't do so. They only destroyed a few cities in the Fire Dragon Empire. They didn't have the intention to destroy the Fire Dragon Empire. It was obvious that these people had a motive. Their motive wasn't to destroy the Fire Dragon Empire. It was as if they were waiting for someone. However, Guan Yu couldn't figure out the reason why the Four Kingdoms would make such a big fuss. Guan Yu thought for a while and decided to send a message to Yi Hao. After all, this was a serious matter. If anything went wrong, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Yi Hao was escorting Wishuefu. The group was rushing back. As for the disappearance of Brother Fa and the rest, although everyone wanted to ask about it, they were afraid of Yi Hao's authority. No one dared to ask. However, the bloodstains in the room proved that Brother Fa and the rest were dead. Therefore, everyone guessed that Brother Fa and the rest were all killed by Yi Hao. Everyone's fear of Yi Hao deepened again. This was a decisive person. They couldn't afford to offend him. Otherwise, they might lose their lives. Brother Fa and the rest were the top fighters among them. Now, they were all killed by Yi Hao. They didn't think that they were as strong as Brother Fa and the rest. When they recalled the screams that came from Brother Fa's room last night, they couldn't help but shudder. Could it be that something happened? Yi Hao immediately sensed the message in the voice transmission talisman. Chapter 332. That damned Celestial Wolf Kingdom. I should have destroyed them back then. Yi Hao said regretfully when he saw the message on the teleportation talisman. It seems like the Blood Demon Dynasty is making a move again. Yi Hao still remembered that he had taken drugs to kill Emperor Wu. The token on Emperor Wu's body had exposed his identity. Back then, he couldn't afford to offend the dynasty, so he had hoped that the Blood Demon cult wouldn't discover him. He hadn't expected that he would miss the Celestial Wolf Kingdom and the Blood Demon cult would come knocking on his door. However, Guan Yu's analysis made sense. These people were surrounding him, but not attacking. Moreover, they were going through so much trouble to force him out. However, he had already sent Brother Fa and the others back. They should be able to solve the current problem. He had a lot of things to do now. He really didn't have the energy to return to his country. Moreover, based on the current situation, as long as he didn't appear, they wouldn't kill the Fire Dragon Empire. Yi Hao immediately told Guan Yu about Brother Fa. Guan Yu heaved a sigh of relief. However, Guan Yu wasn't in a hurry to tell the generals about this. He was afraid that they would let down their guard. Moreover, he couldn't rely on Brother Fa completely. Most importantly, it was time to test the Fire Dragon Empire soldiers. Your Majesty, the 9 million soldiers of our Four-Kingdom Alliance have completely surrounded the Fire Dragon Empire. The ruler of the Celestial Wolf Dynasty sat in the main hall and listened to the official's report. Has the Fire Dragon Empire reacted? The ruler of the Celestial Wolf Dynasty asked. The Fire Dragon Empire didn't react. They didn't flee or attack. They just closed the city gates and went into a defensive state. The official replied immediately. Haha. As far as I know, the Fire Dragon Empire only has 1 million soldiers. In my opinion, they are scared out of their wits. The ruler of the Celestial Wolf Dynasty laughed proudly. Your Majesty is right. Let alone a small duchy, even a marquisate or a kingdom would be scared out of their wits when they see our 9 million strong army. This Fire Dragon Empire is indeed powerful. A small duchy actually has 1 million soldiers. It's a pity that he met the king. Your Majesty, what should we do next? Should we wipe out the Fire Dragon Empire in one go? Monarch, let me lead the troops. I'll definitely leave Yanlong's corpses strewn all over the field. I'll kill him and leave nothing behind. The Heavenly Wolf Dynasty's monarch was also enjoying himself as he watched the officials excitedly discuss the matter. He couldn't help but feel a little smug. This was what a ruler should have. Being praised by all the officials was a completely different feeling from being criticized by all the officials. The Tianlang heavenly monarch was a little unwilling to sweep away everyone's temperament and wanted to send his troops to exterminate Yanlong. However, he suddenly recalled the black-robed man's instructions and immediately threw these thoughts to the back of his mind. Cold sweat broke out on his back. If he really did destroy the Fire Dragon Empire in a moment of impulse, it would ruin the black-robed man's plans. Perhaps the black-robed man would really skin him alive. No, I have to ask them about this matter. After coming up with a plan, the Tianlang dynasty's monarch stood up and coughed a few times. My beloved officials, I have some matters to attend to and will be leaving for a moment. Farewell, Your Majesty. The Tianlang dynasty's monarch's prestige was like the midday sun in the imperial court. Who would dare to refuse him? Your humble majesty pays his respects to the lords. The Tianlang dynasty's monarch returned to his chambers and immediately bowed to the black-robed men. What's the matter? The sect leader asked. Your humble majesty has completed your orders and has already surrounded the Fire Dragon Empire, the Tianlang dynasty's monarch said with a tone of wanting to take credit. The sect leader said with satisfaction, You did well. I didn't misjudge you. Take this mystic class high-tier cultivation technique and cultivate it. Thank you, my lord. The Tianlang dynasty's monarch did not expect to obtain a mystic class cultivation technique so easily. Moreover, it was a high-tier cultivation technique. One must know that the Tianlang kingdom also had a mystic class cultivation technique. That was why they were able to surpass the other kingdoms. However, that was only a low-tier cultivation technique. However, that cultivation technique was with his brother. His brother had died, and he had searched the entire imperial palace, but could not find it. Otherwise, he would not have remained in the martial king realm, and there would not be so few experts in the Tianlang kingdom. Now that he had obtained this cultivation technique, there was hope for him to break through to the martial spirit realm. Moreover, he could use this cultivation technique to gather a group of experts, because he knew that the black-robed man was only helping him because they were using him. When they were done using him, they would still abandon him. Therefore, becoming stronger was the way of the king. Now that the black-robed man was suppressing them, those kingdoms would listen to him. If the black-robed man left, those kingdoms would turn hostile faster than flipping a book. Therefore, he had no choice but to prepare in advance. He suddenly did not want the black-robed man to finish his business so soon. The longer they delayed, the more time he would have to prepare. Then, he would be able to deal with those kingdoms. Moreover, he might even be able to get something from the black-robed man. The Tianlang dynasty's monarch hurriedly put away the cultivation technique. My lord, what should I do next? The Tianlang dynasty's monarch asked with a fawning expression. The people in front of him were his treasure trove. He had to be careful when dealing with them. There's no hurry. First, trap the Fire Dragon Empire. First, trap them for a month. No one is allowed to enter or leave. The sect leader said, What if they still do not respond? The sect leader's words were exactly what the Tianlang dynasty's monarch wanted, but he still asked, Give him a month. If the person I'm looking for does not appear, destroy another city in each of the 4 directions. Annihilating a few cities sounded like a piece of cake coming from the sect master's mouth. What if the person you're looking for does not appear? The Tianlang dynasty's monarch continued to ask. If they don't appear, continue to kill until they're all dead. The sect leader said in a gloomy tone. In fact, he was also gambling. He was gambling that Yihao would not disregard the lives of his citizens and would definitely appear. If Yihao did not appear, then there was nothing he could do. After all, this was the only method he had. Regardless of whether it worked or not, he had to give it a try. My lord, we've already surrounded the Fire Dragon Empire. I think their next step is to seek help from the Fiend Demon Spirit Kingdom and the Fire Empire. The Tianlang dynasty's monarch took note of the sect leader's words and voiced his concerns. The hierarchy of power in a country was very strict. Every difference in level was like the difference between heaven and earth. He was not that worried about the Fiend Demon Spirit Kingdom. However, he was still very afraid of the size of the Fire Dragon Empire. Although the sect leader had told him not to worry, he had no choice but to be cautious at a time like this. Why? Do you not trust me? Or do you not believe in my strength? The sect leader was not angry when he heard the Tianlang dynasty's monarch's words. Chapter 333. Do as you wish. I guarantee that the Fire Dragon Empire won't send any reinforcements. After the sect leader finished speaking, he signaled to the people behind him. Immediately, a man in black nodded, indicating that he understood. Then he flew out. Meanwhile, in the direction of the Fiend Spirit Kingdom, the Fiend Demon Emperor, he had also received a request for reinforcements from the Fire Dragon Empire. My dear ministers, what do you think of this? The Fiend Demon Emperor narrowed his eyes and asked his officials. Discussions broke out in the imperial court. No one knew what the Fiend Demon Emperor was thinking, so no one dared to answer. Seeing that no one was speaking, the Fiend Demon Emperor glanced at Zheng Dong. Zheng Dong, what do you think? Zheng Dong didn't want to get involved in this matter, but he had received benefits from Yi Hao. Plus, he really wanted that wine. But that didn't mean he would be so rash. He sorted out his thoughts and said, Your Majesty, we should investigate the reason why the Celestial Wolf Kingdom sent their troops. But the Celestial Wolf Kingdom doesn't take us seriously at all. No matter what, the Fire Dragon Empire is our vassal force. How dare the Celestial Wolf Kingdom attack us as they please? Plus, the Celestial Wolf Kingdom doesn't take us seriously. There are so many other kingdoms watching us. If we don't do anything, I don't think it's right. Zheng Dong spoke for a long time, but he was still thinking about Yi Hao. His words were mostly for Yi Hao's sake. The Fiend Demon Emperor looked up and stared at Zheng Dong. You mean to say that we should help the Fire Dragon Empire? Zheng Dong knew what to do and immediately knelt on the ground. I don't dare to make such a decision. Your Majesty, please make the decision. But you're right. A small kingdom doesn't take our Fiend Demon Kingdom seriously. The Fiend Demon Emperor nodded and looked at the others. My dear ministers, do you have any other opinions? Your Majesty, I think Lord Zheng is right. The Celestial Wolf Kingdom wouldn't attack a duchy for no reason. We should find out the reason. Your Majesty, I feel that a small kingdom should be taught a lesson for daring to provoke us. Your Majesty, I feel that there is no need for us to interfere in this matter. Let them fend for themselves. Actually, the Fiend Demon Emperor was also curious as to why the Celestial Wolf Kingdom would ally with the other three kingdoms to attack the Fire Dragon Empire. There must be a secret behind such a big fuss. The Fire Dragon Empire was a vassal state under his command. Now that they were being bullied, it was only right for him to send reinforcements. However, he didn't want to do so because he still remembered that the Fire Dragon Empire had been in the limelight a year ago and had been noticed by the Fire Emperor. Therefore, in his heart, he had always been afraid of the Fire Dragon Empire. However, the Fire Dragon Empire was under his control, so he couldn't make a move against the Fire Dragon Empire. Moreover, if he made a move against the Fire Dragon Empire, he was afraid that the Fire Emperor would find trouble with him. Moreover, if word of this got out, it wouldn't be very impressive. It would also cause a knot in the hearts of the other vassal states under his command. And this time, the Celestial Wolf Kingdom's operation was a chance to eradicate the Fire Dragon Empire. At this moment, he was hesitating whether he should make a move. Should he save the Fire Dragon Empire? Or should he bide his time and let the Celestial Wolf Kingdom destroy the Fire Dragon Empire? He couldn't make a decision at the moment. Report. A letter from the Fire Emperor. At this moment, a loud shout came from outside the main hall. When the Fiend Demon Emperor heard the voice outside the main hall, his brows instantly furrowed together, and a displeased expression appeared on his face. He didn't expect the Fire Emperor to send a letter so quickly. If he guessed correctly, the contents of the letter were definitely related to the Fire Dragon Empire. An empire was so concerned about a duchy. He couldn't help but be on guard. Kill. The Fiend Demon Emperor muttered to himself. He knew that the Fire Dragon Empire couldn't be allowed to live. If they were allowed to live, they might one day ride on his head. This was something he didn't want to see. Announce it. The Fiend Demon Emperor's voice sounded a little off as he shouted. He took the letter and read it. It was just as he had expected. The Fire Emperor had ordered him to immediately send out 10 million troops to suppress the Celestial Wolf Kingdom. He had to save the Fire Dragon Empire and not let the Fire Dragon Empire be harmed. Sigh. Seeing the Fiend Demon Emperor's expression, Zheng Dong sighed inwardly. The Flame Dragon Empire was most likely going to be doomed this time. He knew the Fiend Demon Emperor very well. After all, he had followed him for decades. Even if the Fiend Demon Emperor didn't say anything, he could tell at a glance what was on his mind. My beloved subjects, the Fire Emperor has ordered me to send out troops to save the Fire Dragon Empire. What do you think? The Fiend Demon Emperor crushed the letter into a ball, his gaze burning like a torch as he scanned everyone. At this moment, none of the civil and military officials dared to speak. Given the Fiend Demon Emperor's current state, if they were not careful and offended him, they would be in for a bad time. Looking at the Fiend Demon Emperor's expression, it was likely that he didn't want to send out troops to save the Fire Dragon Empire. But there was still pressure from the Fire Emperor, so he had no choice but to send out troops. And now, the Fiend Demon Emperor had directly thrown all the problems to them. But to be able to live in the imperial court, which one of them wasn't a wily old fox? No one wanted to be in the limelight just because of this. Leave this matter to Zheng Dong. You must send 10 million elite troops to save the Fire Dragon Empire. Seeing the officials lower their heads, the Fiend Demon Emperor directly called out to Zheng Dong. Hearing that the Fiend Demon Emperor had appointed a person in charge, everyone was relieved. Many of Zheng Dong's enemies were secretly laughing. They wanted to see what Zheng Dong would do when he received such a hot potato. When Zheng Dong heard the Fiend Demon Emperor's words, his body trembled violently. His face turned ashen, and he felt bitter in his heart. He knew that this was because he had said too many good things about the Fire Dragon Empire just now. Now, the Fiend Demon Emperor was unhappy with him and wanted to make a move on him. Now that the Fire Emperor had given the order to save the Fire Dragon Empire, the Fiend Demon Emperor didn't want to save them. Now that the Fiend Demon Emperor had handed this problem to him, regardless of whether he saved them in the end, it would be difficult for him to escape death. If he didn't save the Fire Dragon Empire, it would be in line with the Fiend Demon Emperor's wishes. But then, he would have to bear the Fire Emperor's wrath. But if he saved the Fire Dragon Empire, it would be in line with the Fire Emperor's wishes. The Fire Emperor wouldn't care about an insignificant person like him, and would only praise the Fiend Demon Empire. But this wasn't in line with the Fiend Demon Emperor's wishes. When the time came, it would still be difficult for him to escape death. Zheng Dong laughed bitterly. He didn't expect that just because of a few words from him, the Fiend Demon Emperor would want to kill him. No matter what, he hadn't done anything to let the Fiend Demon Emperor down. It could be said that he had done his best for the Fiend Demon Emperor. But it was true that being in the Emperor's company was like being in the company of Tiger. If he hadn't done something right, no matter how much effort he had put in the past, it was all worthless now. Your subject obeys. Zheng Dong gritted his teeth and accepted the decree. It was as if there were 10,000 pounds of strength in his body, causing him to kneel on the ground. Chapter 334. On that day, Zheng Dong led 10 million soldiers and charged towards the Fire Dragon Empire. As a civil official, Zheng Dong didn't feel the slightest bit of pride when he led 10 million soldiers for the first time. Sigh. Zheng Dong lowered his head and sighed. He didn't expect to end up like this after working his whole life. What should I do? Should I help or not? Zheng Dong was in a dilemma. Now that the 10 million soldiers were in his hands, the decision of whether to save the Fire Dragon Empire was also in his hands. Sigh. How can I break out of this deadlock? Zheng Dong looked up and sighed. Yi Hao frowned and followed behind Guo Xuefu in confusion. Under Guo Xuefu's lead, the place they were going to was getting more and more desolate, and the martial arts were getting more and more scarce. This place was so barren that even magical beasts wouldn't want to stay here, let alone humans. Guo Xuefu was related to a prince of the Sacred Dynasty, and her status was at least from a powerful force. No matter how bad it was, she shouldn't be staying in such a place. Not only Yi Hao, but the guards also had a puzzled look on their faces. From what they knew, Guoshuefu's family background was also very powerful. Otherwise, why would Prince Bai take pity on Guoshuefu but not dare to touch her? All of this was because of Guoshuefu's powerful background. But when Guoshuefu brought them to such a desolate place, they felt too different and couldn't adapt. But since Yihao didn't ask, they were even more obedient and didn't dare to ask Guoshuefu. "We're here." Suddenly, Guoshuefu stopped in front of a mountain and said softly, "What? There's only a desolate mountain here. Could it be that Miss Guo's family lives here? There's no sign of human habitation here. Miss Guo must be joking. Not to mention humans. There's not even a single magical beast." Everyone looked at the mountain in front of them in confusion. Calling it a mountain was an insult to a mountain. It was just a few 100 meters tall mound with loose weeds growing on it. In short, it was indescribably desolate. This place was really too desolate. Formation. Although Yihao couldn't see through the mountain before him, he could vaguely sense the fluctuations of an array formation because he wanted to inscribe the heart of the array formation. Detect. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for failing to detect. Your level is insufficient. Hearing the failure notification in his mind, Yihao muttered softly, "It's actually a high-level array formation." Formation? Isn't this just a barren mountain? Where did this formation come from? That's right. Who would be so bored as to set up a formation in this godforsaken place? Deliberately mystifying things. Only someone with a screw loose would set up a formation in this broken place. Hearing Yihao's words, everyone sneered. None of them believed Yihao's words. "Who dares to speak ill of me? Gadanzin, kneel down and slap your mouth." Suddenly, a cold shout was heard, and a figure flashed in front of the barren mountain. Bang! 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 A few consecutive sounds rang out, and the few guards who had spoken earlier were all sent flying. And you, as the commander, are not strict enough. Let me teach you a lesson. The person who had appeared was a handsome young man who was a first-level martial emperor. After sending the guards flying, he did not stop and continued to attack Yihao. Wu Jiafeng stopped. Seeing the young man attacking Yihao, Guoshuefu couldn't help but shout anxiously. "Oomph." Wu Jiafeng snorted coldly and ignored Guoshuefu. He wanted to show off in front of Guoshuefu. In fact, he also liked Guoshuefu. After all, Guoshuefu was beautiful, gentle, and kind. However, his status was not as high as Bai Yi's. Guoshuefu was betrothed to Bai Yi, and this made him angry. Why did the woman he liked have to marry a good-for-nothing prince? Was it because his status was higher than his? In his heart, no one was worthy of Guoshuefu, even if Bai Yi was the prince of the Bishing Holy Dynasty. Since he couldn't teach Bai Yi a lesson, he would vent his anger on Yihao. This was because he had already found out that the team that had escorted Guoshuefu back was the 8th Monarch Squad under Bai Yi. He had already planned to teach the 8th Monarch Squad a lesson and vent his anger. Moreover, Guoshuefu's tough attitude and commanding tone made him feel even more unbearable. "Why? How dare you order me around just because of a commander? Since you want to stop me, I won't listen to you. I will kill this guy in front of you. Let's see what you can do about it." Thinking of this, Wu Jiafeng used his strongest move and attacked Yihao's head. In his opinion, Yihao was just a rank 5 Emperor Wu. How could he be the deputy commander of the 8th Monarch Squad? The 8th Monarch Squad was just a facade. "Kneel down, kid," Wu Jiafeng shouted angrily. "You're courting death." Originally, he could ignore Wu Jiafeng teaching the guards a lesson. After all, they were courting death and they weren't his men. He could stand aside and not stop Wu Jiafeng. However, since Wu Jiafeng was courting death and had offended him, there was no need for him to show mercy. 5th senior brother, 9th junior brother is being rash again. Should we stop him? 2 young men stood behind the barren mountain and watched everything that was happening. No need. I don't like these guards. I don't understand what the sect leader is thinking. How could he marry the eldest miss to that playboy? 5th senior brother looked indignant. He looked at Guoshuefu's graceful figure with a hint of greed in his eyes. Commander Hyde. Although they didn't like Yihao, no matter what, Yi Hao was still one of them. Their own conflict was considered an internal conflict. Wu Jiafeng had humiliated the Baisheng dynasty. If he did the same to Yi Hao, it would be a big joke. If the commander of the Baisheng dynasty was beaten up, they wouldn't have the face to call themselves the Imperial Guards of the Baisheng dynasty. Seeing that Yi Hao wasn't moving, the guards shouted anxiously. Many of them had already taken out their weapons and were ready to stop Wu Jiafeng. However, Wu Jiafeng was a first-order martial emperor. Their reaction speed wasn't as fast as Wu Jiafeng's. Yi Hao shouted. He didn't even look at Wu Jiafeng as he lightly struck out with his palm. It seemed like he didn't use much strength. On the other hand, the strength in Wu Jiafeng's palm was surging. It was obvious that Wu Jiafeng had the upper hand. This brat is scared silly. Looking at Yi Hao's gentle palm, Wu Jiafeng couldn't help but sneer. He met Yi Hao's palm with his own. Many of the guards had already closed their eyes and didn't dare to look. They were cursing Yi Hao in their hearts. Why are you still pretending? Aren't you courting death? Bang! When their palms met, there was a loud explosion. Heaven and earth shattered and a shockwave rose. Many of the guards were afraid of being affected and immediately retreated. Chapter 335. Commander, Deputy Commander. A group of guards immediately shouted loudly. In their opinion, Yi Hao was most likely going to meet with misfortune. However, everyone was afraid of Wu Jiafeng and did not dare to look forward. After a few moments, the dust finally dissipated, revealing two figures. However, one was on the ground while the other was still standing on the spot. How was this possible? The dust settled completely. When everyone saw the scene before them, they were all in disbelief. Their mouths were so wide open that a fist could fit in them. This was because they realized that reality was different from what they had imagined. In their opinion, Yi Hao should have been on the ground, but it was Wu Jiafeng who was on the ground, and Yi Hao had won. Commander is mighty. It was unknown who took the lead to shout this, but it immediately attracted a tsunami of cheers. Commander is mighty. Commander is mighty. Yi Hao also did not expect that he actually obtained everyone's support by a free combination of factors. Actually, these people's hatred for Yi Hao originated from the fact that Yi Hao had killed their vice commander and commander. It made them feel as though Team Monarch number 8 and Team Monarch number 2 had been slapped in the face by Yi Hao. Of course, this did not mean that Fatty was a good person in their hearts. It was only because Yi Hao had slapped them in the face that they felt uncomfortable. That was why they could not stand Yi Hao. However, Yi Hao had helped them vent their anger and helped them gain face. Instantly, many people had a good impression of Yi Hao. How is this possible? My meridians! Wu Jiafeng was lying on the ground, blood flowing out of his mouth. His voice was weak. His meridians were all destroyed. In other words, he had become a cripple. He was destined to have no future with martial arts. If that was the case, it would be better to just kill him. This is your own strength. I'm just giving it back to you. Looking at Wu Jiafeng, who was like a pile of mud, Yi Hao said softly, "You only have yourself to blame if you want to be obedient." He didn't kill Wu Jiafeng. After all, if he guessed correctly, this should be Guo Shuefu's home. He had to give Guo Shuefu some face. After all, Guo Shuefu had helped him before. It would be inappropriate for him to kill someone from her family in front of her house. But that did not mean that Yi Hao had a good temper. No matter how much power you use to attack me, I'll use the same amount of power to retaliate. As for whether you live or die, that's up to you. But now it seemed that Wu Jiafeng deserved it. Originally, Wu Jiafeng had wanted to perform well in front of Guo Shuefu and win her favor. Therefore, Wu Jiafeng used his strongest power to crush Yi Hao. In the end, he reaped what he sowed and shattered his own martial meridians. With Wu Jiafeng's talent, no matter what, he was still a genius of his generation. Who would have thought that he would end up like this, destroyed by his own hands? On the contrary, the guard did not have any pity for Wu Jiafeng. After all, everyone had seen Wu Jiafeng's arrogance just now. As for the guards who were attacked by Wu Jiafeng, their injuries were not lighter than Wu Jiafeng's. Ninth junior brother. Lad, how dare you injure my ninth junior brother? Let's see how many lives you have left today. Seeing that Wu Jiafeng had been defeated, which was beyond the expectations of fifth senior brother and fourth senior brother, the two of them did not hide and immediately stepped forward to question Wu Jiafeng. Finally out, Yi Hao sneered when he saw the two of them. From the moment he saw them, he had a sharp feeling that someone was watching him in the dark. It seemed like it was the two people in front of him. It was Wu Jiafeng's fault in this matter. He had spared Wu Jiafeng's life, which was already a great kindness. However, the expression and attitude of fifth senior brother and fourth senior brother made Yi Hao very unhappy. Since this was the case, there was no need for him to show them any respect. Men, capture this man. How dare he attack the imperial guards of the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty? He must have a death wish. Let's see who dares. Fifth senior brother was surprised when he heard Yi Hao's order. He had not expected Yi Hao to make such a decision. The guards did not care. They were also unhappy with fifth senior brother and fourth senior brother. When they heard Yi Hao's order, two of them stepped forward and lifted Wu Jiafeng up as though he was a dead dog. Senior brother, save me. Wu Jiafeng had not expected Yi Hao to not let him off after his cultivation was destroyed. He immediately pleaded with fifth senior brother and fourth senior brother for help. Didn't you hear my order? Let my junior brother go. Fifth senior brother had not expected that the guards would not show him any respect. His face darkened as he spoke in a deep voice. There was already a hint of threat in his tone. However, the guards held their heads high and looked straight ahead. It was as though they could not see fifth senior brother, let alone hear what he had said. Fifth senior brother was unhappy that everyone had ignored him. However, he could not act rashly now that his junior brother was in their hands. Fifth senior brother suppressed his anger and looked at Yi Hao. I'll give you one more chance. Let him go. Who do you think you are? Yi Hao glanced at fifth senior brother. He did not even look him in the eye. Fifth senior brother almost vomited blood. How dare a lowly commander speak to him like that? Do you really not know anything? You have to see clearly whose territory this is. This is not the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty. Wow! The guard were in an uproar. Awesome! All the guards thought at the same time. They realized that they must have misunderstood Yi Hao in the past. Yi Hao's attitude toward fifth senior brother made them feel relieved. They realized that they had begun to like Yi Hao's character. They felt comfortable following a commander like him. In the past, Fatty and the others were people who bullied the weak and feared the strong. If they encountered a strong enemy, they would definitely swallow their anger. However, Yi Hao was fearless. His attitude was unyielding. Many guards straightened their backs, afraid that they would lose their momentum. You're really forcing me. In fact, with so many guards around, fifth senior brother, as a third-order martial emperor, was hesitant to make a move. However, it did not mean that he could endure. He was on the verge of exploding. Forcing you, Yi Hao looked at fifth senior brother and said, We are the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty's guards. Do you dare to make a move? With the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty as his trump card, it would be a waste not to use it. Moreover, Yi Hao was eager to make enemies for the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty. Hence, he was even more fearless. Fifth senior brother's expression changed again and again. He clenched and unclenched his fists. That's right, he was afraid of the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty. He was not as impulsive as ninth junior brother. If he took the initiative to make a move on Yi Hao, he would not be able to clear his name. This was also the reason why he was in a hurry to rescue Wu Jiafeng. He was afraid that the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty would get hold of his weakness and bring trouble to Gedanzan. I apologize to you on behalf of junior brother. Let him go. Fifth senior brother suddenly lowered his attitude and said to Yi Hao, Senior brother. Sixth senior brother was shocked. He did not understand what was wrong with fifth senior brother. Chapter 336. Then what do you want? Fifth senior brother was completely enraged. He didn't expect Yi Hao to be so ignorant, even though he had already put down his attitude. Did Yi Hao really think that he was afraid of him? Or did he think that he was easy to bully? Yi Hao lifted his head and looked at fifth senior brother with an evil smile. I have my own decisions. I don't need you to interfere. Fifth senior brother felt that he couldn't communicate with Yi Hao. He kept hitting a wall. Eldest miss, save me. Seeing that Yi Hao wasn't giving fifth senior brother face, Wu Jiafeng could only cry and beg Guoshuefu for help. You can only blame yourself for this. You asked for it. I already stopped you just now and asked you to stop, but you didn't listen. What can I do? Guoshuefu shook her head and smiled bitterly. What? Ha. Wu Jiafeng laughed when he heard Guoshuefu's words. Then, he laughed self-deprecatingly. At first, he thought that Guoshuefu was afraid that Yi Hao would get hurt, so he purposely tried to kill him to show off. He didn't expect her to know that he wasn't a match for Yi Hao from the start. She only asked him to stop because she wanted to save him. Please open the entrance. I want to return to the sect. Guoshuefu ignored Wu Jiafeng's self-deprecating laughter and said to fifth senior brother, yes, Guoshuefu was the precious daughter of the sect leader. No matter how arrogant fifth senior brother was, he didn't dare to show the slightest disrespect. Fifth senior brother took out a token, and a small mountain road suddenly appeared on the side of the mountain. Wait a minute. Gedanzin doesn't welcome outsiders. Fifth senior brother sneered when he saw that the guards were about to follow them. He finally found a chance to take revenge. Oh, since when did Gedanzin have such a rule? Why didn't I know about it? Guoshuefu, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped and turned around to ask fifth senior brother, outsiders? Miss Gua is His Highness's fiancée. We will be a family in the future. Are you trying to sow discord? Yi Hao suddenly looked at fifth senior fellow apprentice and asked sternly. This? Fifth senior brother immediately stuttered. Since Gedanzin had betrothed Guoshuefu to the Bai Shang holy dynasty, it meant that he wanted to form an alliance with them. Destroying the alliance between the two was a huge crime. Even if he was beaten to death, he would not be able to bear it. The guards couldn't help but look at Yi Hao a few more times. They originally thought that they would be blocked outside the door. After all, Gedanzin was also a saint-rank force. He was at the same level as the Bai Shang holy dynasty. Although he wasn't as powerful as the Bai Shang holy dynasty, he was still a powerful force. If it wasn't for the Bai Shang holy dynasty, they wouldn't have dared to barge in. He reckoned that he would have to spend the night here in the next few days. This was not a big deal, but if news of this spread to the other teams or forces, they would definitely be punished. Then their 2nd and 8th squads would really lose face. They were escorting His Highness's fiancée back, but they were blocked outside and not allowed to enter. How could they still have the face to return to the palace? They didn't expect Yi Hao to be so quick-witted. With just a few words, he made fifth senior brother speechless. In fact, fifth senior brother was just a disciple. Even some elders or important people in Gedanzin wouldn't dare to bear the crime of destroying the alliance between the two forces. Let's go in. I'll see who dares to stop us. Looking at fifth senior brother's expression, Guoshuefu said unhappily. She guessed that fifth senior brother must have made the decision to stop Yi Hao and the rest from entering. Fifth senior brother gritted his teeth, lowered his head, and retreated. Yi Hao took the lead and led the guards to follow behind Guoshuefu. Looking at the guards walking past him with their heads held high, fifth senior brother felt that his lungs were about to explode. He roared into the air. Among the outer sect disciples of the ancient alchemy sect, he was also an existence akin to a genius. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Who do they think they are? They are just watchdogs of the royal family. How dare they be so arrogant in front of me? Fifth senior brother thought angrily. If it weren't for the Bishing dynasty, he would have skinned Yi Hao alive. Senior brother, calm down. Sixth junior brother saw fifth senior brother roaring into the sky and tried to calm him down. Come with me to find master. No matter what, we must save ninth junior brother. I won't let this arrogant man off. After roaring into the sky for a while, fifth senior brother finally calmed down and rushed toward the barren mountain. What a powerful array! After walking a few hundred meters on the path, the group suddenly felt as though they had arrived in another world. There were green mountains and clear waters, birds chirping and flowers fragrant. There were towering trees everywhere. Most importantly, the martial arts power in the air had undergone an earth-shattering change. Compared to the martial arts power they had encountered earlier, the difference was like heaven and earth. It was more than a few hundred times stronger. The martial arts power here was comparable to the martial arts power of the Bishing dynasty. This is Gdanzin. If I hadn't come here by accident, I wouldn't have known where to look. Yi Hao sighed as he looked at Gdanzin, which was like another world. He had come out to find the divine elixir pills for the Nangong, Wentian, and Zhengdong had told him about Gdanzin. Originally, he had wanted to look for Gdanzin after he was done with the beast monster sect. Who would have thought that he would come to Gdanzin by accident? However, this was a sacred sect after all. If no one led the way, he would have a hard time finding it. Even if he found it, he wouldn't be able to find a real entrance to Gdanzin due to the existence of the array. However, the divine elixir pills were precious. Even if he entered Gdanzin, it wouldn't be easy for him to get his hands on the divine elixir pills. Looking at the situation, this was still Guo Shiuefu's home. If he wanted to snatch it, he wouldn't be able to leave this place alive, and he wouldn't be able to live with his conscience. However, if he wanted Guo Shiuefu to give him one, it would be wishful thinking because the divine elixir pills were too precious. How could Guo Shiuefu give it to him for no reason at all? Forget it. I'll take it one step at a time. At worst, I'll raise my alchemy level and refine it myself. After thinking for a moment, Yi Hao made up his mind. My father has a bad temper. You have to be careful later. Guo Shiuefu was afraid that Yi Hao would cause trouble for her and told Yi Hao through voice transmission. Am I the kind of person who causes trouble? Besides, whether your father has a good temper or not has nothing to do with me. I'm just escorting you back. Yi Hao was speechless as he transmitted his voice to Guo Shiuefu, feeling indignant for himself. In response to Yi Hao, she rolled her eyes. If you don't cause trouble, who will? You accidentally barged into the palace of the Sacred Dynasty and became restless. First, you killed the commander of the second team, then the deputy commander of the 8th team. You did something that others wouldn't even dare to do in their dreams. How can you not cause trouble? You just arrived at Gdanzin, and you crippled an outer sect genius disciple's martial arts cultivation at the entrance of the sect, and even captured him. Chapter 337. Greetings, Father. Yi Hao followed Guo Shiuefu to the main hall of Gdanzin alone. To Yi Hao's surprise, there was only a middle-aged man in green sitting in the hall. The middle-aged man had a standard square face and looked gentle. However, he did not look like a big shot who controlled the saint-level force. On the contrary, the middle-aged man looked more like an ordinary person or a scholar. It turns out that all fathers are gentle. It is no wonder that they were able to raise a well-educated, gentle, and kind daughter. Yi Hao guessed that Guo Shiuefu's character was most likely related to her father's teachings. My daughter, you don't have to be so courteous. Have you gotten used to life in the past 6 months? Guo Jinyu saw Guo Shiuefu and immediately stood up from his seat with a smile. He walked over to Guo Shiuefu and took her hand. He looked concerned. Thank you for your concern, Father. I'm doing well. Guo Shiuefu saw that her father was so concerned about her. She was afraid that Guo Jinyu would be worried, so she immediately smiled. My daughter, how long will it take for you to come back this time? Guo Jinyu was relieved to see that his daughter was fine. In fact, he was not willing to let his daughter marry into the Bishing dynasty. After all, no matter how strong the prince's background was, he was not worthy of his daughter. Moreover, although his daughter looked gentle on the outside, she was very strong-willed. He knew that Guo Shiuefu did not like Bai Yi. I just came back, and you are chasing me away. Guo Shiuefu snorted angrily and turned her head to the side. All right, my dear daughter, how could I bear to chase you away? I'm willing to let you stay by my side every day. Guo Jinyu smiled and stroked Guo Shiuefu's hair lovingly. Yi Hao frowned as he watched. No matter how he looked at it, Guo Jinyu looked like a good father. Moreover, the sincerity in his eyes could not be faked. How could she bear to use Guo Shiuefu as a sacrifice to marry a man she didn't like? Ahem. Yi Hao suddenly coughed twice. Hearing Yi Hao's coughing, Guo Jinyu finally noticed Yi Hao. Then, he looked at Yi Hao, an expert. Although Guo Jinyu didn't do anything, Yi Hao felt immense pressure, He felt powerless in front of Guo Jinyu. If his guess was correct, Guo Jinyu was definitely a martial sage. And compared to Bai Wu, he was only stronger. This was because in front of Bai Wu, although Yi Hao felt pressured, he was still able to deal with it calmly. However, Guo Jinyu didn't do anything, yet he was able to exert such pressure on him. Then, Yi Hao's gaze suddenly shook, and he recovered from the powerlessness. What a joke. His goal was to unify the entire royal continent. In the future, even martial gods would have to submit to him. How could he be afraid before the battle? Moreover, Guo Jinyu didn't do anything, so what was there to be afraid of? Thinking of this, Yi Hao's eyes shone brightly as he looked at Guo Jinyu. His expression was once again filled with confidence. What an interesting kid. Seeing Yi Hao's expression, Guo Jinyu was slightly surprised and became curious about Yi Hao. Although he didn't deliberately release his aura, his cultivation level was too high. As long as he didn't deliberately restrain his aura, even martial emperors wouldn't be able to withstand it. Even martial emperors would not be able to withstand it. They would not be able to remain calm and would even have to activate their martial power to resist it. However, Yi Hao was only in the Emperor Wu realm. He was surprised that Yi Hao could withstand his aura and remain so calm. Who are you? What's your position in the Holy Dynasty's Imperial Guards? Guo Jinyu was interested in Yi Hao and asked. Lu Ji, the commander of the 2nd Squad and the deputy commander of the 8th Squad. Yi Hao didn't know what Guo Jinyu wanted to do, so he revealed his identity as Lu Ji. As for his true identity, Yi Hao would never reveal it unless he had no other choice. Oh, holding 2 commander positions. Guo Jinyu was also somewhat shocked. He had heard about the selection of the Imperial Guard commander in the Bai Sheng Holy Dynasty. The candidates had to be at least in the martial emperor realm. Yi Hao was only in the Emperor Wu realm, and he wasn't strong enough. Father, Lu Ji is right. He killed the commander of the 2nd Squad and the deputy commander of the 8th Squad and obtained the positions. Seeing the disbelief on Guo Jinyu's face, Guo Shuefu hurriedly said, Yi Hao is her friend after all. She couldn't let Yi Hao lose face. Really? Guo Jinyu narrowed his eyes as he looked at Yi Hao. He didn't expect Yi Hao to have such an ability. If Yi Hao could kill a martial emperor as an Emperor Wu, he must be a genius if he didn't hide his strength. No matter what, Yi Hao wasn't simple. More importantly, it seemed that his daughter cared about this guard. Otherwise, why would she take the initiative to speak up for Yi Hao? Sect Master Guo, there's something I don't understand. Yi Hao suddenly said to Guo Jinyu. Logically speaking, with his seniority, he should address Guo Jinyu as a junior. However, Yi Hao used the word I. In his opinion, he was giving Guo Jinyu a lot of face. After all, he was an emperor. Although he wasn't as powerful as Guo Jinyu now, Yi Hao believed that he would surpass Guo Jinyu one day. He couldn't be too humble. Guo Jinyu was a little uncomfortable with how Yi Hao addressed himself. After all, no matter how powerful Yi Hao was just a guard. Who was he? He was the dignified sect master of Gdanzan. He was a top existence in the Myriad Kingdom continent. It was Yi Hao's blessing to be able to speak to him. How dare he use the word I in front of him? Not to mention a minor commander, even the Grand Commander of the Holy Dynasty would have to be respectful to him and address him with the title of little or lowly or humble. However, Guo Jinyu didn't take it to heart. Instead, he looked at Yi Hao. He wanted to know what Yi Hao wanted. I see that Sect Master Guo dotes on your daughter very much. Why would you let your daughter marry someone she doesn't like? Yi Hao went straight to the point. He was a person who would repay the kindness of a drop of water with a gushing spring. Since Guo Shuefu had helped him before, now that she was in trouble, he would lend her a helping hand if he could. Enough. Guo Jinyu had tolerated Yi Hao for a long time. How dare this guard question him? Did he think he was someone important? My daughter is marrying the prince of the Bishing dynasty, the future emperor of the Bishing dynasty, your master. If she doesn't marry him, should she marry you? On Guo Jinyu's elegant face, there was also a hint of anger. He was the dignified sect master of Gdanzan. He was a top figure in the Myriad Kingdom continent. Now that he was offended by a nobody, how could he not be angry? What? Did I poke at your sore spot? A dignified martial sage and a sect master. If you can't even decide your daughter's happiness, what's the point of living? Since Yihao had decided to help Guo Shuefu, he was no longer worried about Guo Jinyu's anger and kept talking. Guo Jinyu's face was gloomy and filled with murderous intent. Yihao's words were like a sharp knife that kept poking at his sore spot. No one had dared to say these words to him, not even his beloved daughter. At this time, it was said by a nobody. Chapter 338. Lu Ji, that's enough. Stop talking. Guo Shuefu shouted anxiously. Guo Shuefu knew what Lu Ji meant by doing this. However, she was afraid that her father would not be able to control himself and end Yihao's life. Guo Shuefu was very touched, but she had to stop Yihao from talking. No, you don't have to stop him. Let him talk. Guo Jinyu reached out to stop Guo Shuefu. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Yihao. He wanted to see what Yihao could say. Sect leader Guo, you are angry. It seems that I have hit your sore spot. Yihao looked at Guo Jinyu and laughed fearlessly. Who are you? Guo Jinyu squinted and stared at Yihao for a long time before he suddenly asked. At this moment, Guo Jinyu's face was filled with boundless anger. When a martial sage was angry, the sky would change color and corpses would be everywhere. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky above Gedanzan. All the disciples and elders looked in the direction of the main hall in fear. In Guo Jinyu's opinion, even if Yihao was a young and impetuous boy, even if he was a junior commander of the Imperial Guards, Yihao's words and actions were superior. Although he was still a little immature, only a person with a high position could have such an attitude. The reason for that was because that arrogant gaze was most definitely not something that a mere commander could possess. The commander of the Imperial Guards of the Bai Shang dynasty. Yihao said without changing his expression, Impossible. Tell me, what is your real identity? Guo Jinyu immediately denied. Fine, if you don't want to tell me, don't force me to kill you. Guo Jinyu waited for a while. When he saw that Yihao was still not talking, he was about to attack Yihao. But Yihao stood there motionless, with a faint smile on his face. He just looked at him quietly. Guo Jinyu did not attack. Suddenly, he looked at Yihao curiously and said, Boy, are you really not afraid of death? Or do you think that I don't dare to kill you? Let me tell you, not to mention you, even if I killed your superior, the Grand Commander, I wouldn't need to give any explanation. No. Yihao shook his head and said confidently, I believe that you won't kill me. Oh. Guo Jinyu looked at Yihao mockingly. Why? Intuition. Yihao calmly spat out these two words. Ha ha ha. Intuition. When Guo Jinyu heard Yihao's words, he raised his head and mocked him mercilessly. As a martial artist, you actually believe in your instincts. Looks like you really don't know what's good for you. Believe it or not, this sect master will kill you right now. Suddenly, Guo Jinyu's aura changed. The martial arts and mental strength in his body were about to burst out. Father. Guo Shuefu immediately stood between the two of them. She was really afraid that her father would get angry and kill Yihao in a fit of anger. She was a little regretful now. If she had known, she would not have brought Yihao here. Although Yihao had caused trouble for her this time, the consequences of angering a martial sage were very serious. Guo Jinyu looked at his daughter's anxious face and thought about how Yihao had disregarded his own safety to speak up for Guo Shuefu. Guo Jinyu suddenly asked with interest, What's the relationship between the two of you? Nothing. Yihao and Guo Shuefu blurted out at the same time. Cough, cough, cough. Seeing that the two of them spoke in unison, Guo Jinyu could not help but cough a few times. Then, Guo Jinyu retracted his aura and placed his hands behind his back. He returned to his scholarly state. I made the right bet. Seeing that Guo Jinyu had retracted his aura, Yihao felt relieved. This was because he had made a bet just now. He had bet that Guo Jinyu was not a heartless person. Although he had contradicted Guo Jinyu, he had done so for his daughter. Since Guo Jinyu loved his daughter so much, he would definitely not do anything to him. Indeed, he had made the right bet. Guo Jinyu sat back on his throne and sized up the two of them. Being stared at by Guo Jinyu. Even if Yi Hao was thick-skinned, he could not take it. Sect Leader Guo, please speak your mind. Elope with my daughter. Guo Jinyu suddenly said something shocking. What? Yi Hao thought that he had heard wrong. He looked at Guo Jinyu in shock. He had just met him once, and he had contradicted him. It was good enough that he was not killed. Why was he betrothing his daughter to him? Could it be that he had fainted from anger? Father, what are you talking about? I'm already engaged to Prince Bai Yi. Guo Shuefu also looked at Guo Jinyu in confusion. One had to know that this marriage was arranged by her father. At that time, she had tried to stop him, but it was to no avail. Guo Shuefu could not believe that her father would say such words. Father, have you become muddle-headed from anger? Guo Shuefu had the same thought as Yi Hao and asked worriedly, What nonsense are you talking about? I'm a martial sage. How could I become muddle-headed from anger? Guo Jinyu pretended to be angry. He suddenly looked at Guo Shuefu and asked, Daughter, do you want to marry Bai? Suddenly, the whole hall became quiet. Guo Shuefu hesitated for a moment and shook her head. That's right. I was a little selfish before. Guo Jinyu was not surprised when he saw Guo Shuefu shaking her head. He knew his daughter best. Father won't force you. You can go with this Lu Ji. After Guo Jinyu said this, he suddenly looked a little lonely. Father, are you okay? Guo Shuefu looked at Guo Jinyu and was even more worried. Father, if I leave, what about the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty's anger? Guo Shuefu asked. Now that everyone knew that the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty and Gedanzin were connected by marriage, she would disappear at this time. At that time, the Bai Shang Holy Dynasty's anger would be vented on Gedanzin. She did not want to see that happen. She did not want to see Gedanzin, where she was born and raised, in a terrible situation. She also did not want to see Gedanzin, which her father had painstakingly built, disappear from this continent. Daughter, listen to your father. Guo Jinyu slowly explained all the reasons. Gedanzin had been declining day by day. Most importantly, Gedanzin's old ancestor had passed away. This meant that Gedanzin no longer had a martial god realm expert. The most powerful expert was himself, a 7th-level martial sage. However, if he wanted to break through to the martial god realm, he would not be able to do so even if he had a few hundred years. Now, many forces were eyeing Gedanzin covetously. After all, Gedanzin was an elixir sect. In the eyes of other martial artists, it was a big fat piece of meat, not a piece of meat. Now, Gedanzin was relying on himself to maintain it. However, this could not change the selfish desires of some people. Originally, in order to protect Gedanzin, he had no choice but to betroth his precious daughter to Bai Yi. At that time, he would be able to obtain the support of a holy dynasty. At that time, Gedanzin would be able to smoothly overcome the difficulties. But suddenly, one day, he discovered that the ancient alchemy sect had long existed in name only, because many powerhouses and alchemy grandmasters were secretly associated with other forces. This completely chilled his heart. However, he was still unwilling. Gedanzin stood at the top of the 10,000 countries continent. How could it be destroyed like this? Therefore, he still hoped that one day he would be able to turn the tide. However, after being contradicted by Yi Hao, Guo Jinyu suddenly came to a complete realization. What was the purpose of his life? As a martial saint expert, he could not even give his daughter happiness. As a martial saint expert, he had to sacrifice his daughter for the sect. Was all worth it? Now, Gedanzin had been completely corroded by worms. Now that he was still alive, those worms did not dare to act recklessly. When he fell, Gedanzin would have no successor. After all, he would still fall. At that time, the Holy Dynasty would not divide Gedanzin. However, they would definitely not help Gedanzin. Chapter 339. But father, I don't like him. Why should I elope with him? Hearing Guo Jinyu's explanation, Guo Shuefu felt very uncomfortable in her heart. She also knew how difficult it was for Guo Jinyu. As a big shot, he also had his own troubles. But to elope with Yi Hao, what kind of joke was that? She was going to marry a genius that only appeared once every 10,000 years, a genius that caused the heavens and earth to change. She only had a good impression of Yi Hao. She did not like Yi Hao. At least, that was what she thought. Silly daughter, I was going to kill this kid. Why are you so nervous if you don't like him? Guo Jinyu asked with a cunning smile. His tone was filled with love for Guo Xuefu. But father, Guo Xuefu paused for a moment. She did not know why she was so nervous. Didn't she treat Yi Hao as a friend? No buts. I know what you're thinking, but the gap between you and him is too big. Guo Jinyu looked at Guo Xuefu and said softly. Guo Jinyu knew that Guo Xuefu admired the mysterious person with the innate sacred spiritual body. But until now, this person had not been discovered. This meant that there was a powerful force protecting him. Many God-ranked forces in the 10,000 countries continent had gone out to search for him, but they were still in a daze. It was easy to imagine how terrifying this person's background was. Besides, he had the innate sacred spiritual body. His future achievements were limitless. It was only a matter of time before he reached the martial god realm. At that time, it was not impossible for him to ascend to the upper realm. Even if his daughter waited her whole life, she might not have any contact with him. Most importantly, they did not even know whether he was a man or a woman. Although Yi Hao thought that there was a gap between him and the innate sacred spiritual body, it was still rare. Because in his opinion, Yi Hao was not bad. At least, he was better than some of the young talents he had met. I wonder if you are willing to give up your current glory and wealth and elope with my daughter. Seeing that Guo Xuefu was deep in thought, Guo Jinyu stopped talking to her. Instead, he looked at Yi Hao and asked Yi Hao. After all, no matter what, Yi Hao was the commander of the Imperial Guards of the Bishing Dynasty. It was a position that many people couldn't obtain even if they racked their brains. Moreover, Yi Hao was so young. He had a bright future ahead of him. If ordinary people were to give up on these positions, they would not be able to do so. Yi Hao shook his head. Guo Jinyu's eyes revealed a trace of dissatisfaction. Could it be that my Guo Jinyu's baby daughter's position can't compare to yours? There was a trace of anger in Guo Jinyu's tone. I didn't even despise you for a mere commander's position. I'm the daughter of a martial sage, and I'm betrothed to you. I haven't even said that I'm unwilling, yet you're being so picky. Yi Hao smiled and said, let's not talk about a small commander. I don't even want to be a senior commander. Then what do you mean? Guo Jinyu looked at Yi Hao in confusion. Could it be that you don't like my daughter? My daughter is naturally beautiful and gentle. When it came to praising his daughter, Guo Jinyu no longer had the demeanor of a sect leader. His words were like a torrential river that flowed endlessly. Yi Hao was speechless. Why did he feel that Guo Jinyu was trying to sell his daughter to him? Humph! Guo Xuefu's heart was in a mess. However, when she saw that her father was praising her while Yi Hao was indifferent to her, she felt a little angry. Miss Guo is very beautiful, and I like her very much, Yi Hao said with a smile when he saw Guo Xuefu's adorable look. Guo Jinyu and Guo Xuefu were even more confused. Since you like her very much, why are you shaking your head? Are you trying to be mysterious? Guo Jinyu rolled his eyes and looked at Yi Hao for a moment before he laughed. Ha ha ha, you little brat. Tell me, do you still want to get benefits from me? Tell me, as long as I have it, I will give it to you. Father, Guo Xuefu stomped her feet in anger. Was she that unbearable? She eloped with him for nothing, and he wasn't even willing. Now, she wanted to give him more. Guo Xuefu wished she could strangle Yi Hao to death. What has this got to do with anything? Yi Hao felt like he was about to break down when he saw Guo Jinyu talking to himself. I just wanted to say that I can help you protect Miss Guo. As for the person she likes, let her choose for herself. Sect Leader Guo, please don't interfere. When Guo Jinyu stopped talking, Yi Hao finally had the chance to speak. He looked at the two of them and said softly, if you betroth Miss Guo to me and she doesn't like me, what's the difference between betrothing her to Bai Yi? So, Sect Leader Guo, if you love Miss Guo, let her find the person she likes herself. When they heard Yi Hao's words, the entire hall suddenly fell silent. Guo Jinyu looked at Yi Hao for a moment and nodded in satisfaction. Little brat, I really didn't misjudge you. All right, my daughter, I won't interfere in your matters. After saying this, Guo Jinyu instantly felt his entire body relax. Thank you, Father. Guo Xuefu's eyes were brimming with tears as she threw herself into Guo Jinyu's arms. Seeing the father and daughter hugging each other, Yihao didn't say anything. He left the hall quietly and closed the door on his way out. He wanted to let the father and daughter have a heart-to-heart talk. Sigh. Father, wait for me. I will definitely rescue you as soon as possible. Yihao sighed when he saw the father and daughter reunite. He then clenched his fists and said, after being separated from Yi Batian for so long, Yihao still missed his father very much. Hearing the roars of beasts in a valley, Yihao's eyes lit up and he immediately flew over. Gedanzan is a restricted area. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter. When Yihao reached the entrance of the valley, 2 guards immediately stopped him. Wait a moment. This is the eldest Mrs. Distinguished Guest. Let him through quickly. At this moment, a disciple flew over and ordered the disciples guarding the valley. Yes, when the 2 disciples saw the person who had come, they had strange expressions on their faces. However, they still made way for him. Thank you. Looking at the person who had come, Yihao didn't understand why the person wanted to help him. However, he still thanked him. I want the experience points and soul points. Yihao directly rushed into the valley. Right now, he was Emperor Wu rank 5. However, the total number of resurrection points and soul points he had was only 37 million. No matter what, he had to gather enough to summon a martial sage first. Otherwise, he would encounter a martial sage every time he took a step. He would be surrounded by danger everywhere. You're welcome. Seeing Yihao fly into the valley, the disciple said in a voice that only he could hear clearly, because once you enter, you won't be able to come out. After that, the disciple left. The 2 disciples guarding the valley looked at each other in dismay. How did that person offend 17's senior brother just now? 17's senior brother actually attacked him so ruthlessly. Sigh. No one who enters the valley has ever come out. This fellow is probably doomed. Forget it. Don't talk too much. Let's pretend that we don't know. We don't want to get into trouble. The Beast Roar Valley was a restricted area in Gedanzan. It wasn't that there were treasures inside. It was just that this valley had already existed when Gedanzan was built. The entire valley was filled with the unknown and was filled with mysterious colors. One had to know that Gedanzan had existed for tens of thousands of years. One could imagine how long the history of this valley was. Chapter 340. When Gedanzan was established, Gedanzan's powerhouses naturally wanted to explore every corner of Gedanzan. As for the Beast Roar Valley, in their eyes at the beginning, it was just an unremarkable little valley. However, when more than 10 Emperor Wu-level powerhouses entered Roaring Beast Valley and never came out again, it attracted everyone's attention. Gedanzan's powerhouses immediately formed a small team of martial emperors, but the result was the same. They entered Roaring Beast Valley like a clay ox entering the sea. They never came back, and there was still no news. At this time, Roaring Beast Valley finally attracted the attention of Gedanzan's higher-ups. They immediately sent a martial god-level powerhouse directly into the valley. However, the result was the same. The martial emperor also never came back. Therefore, since then, no one dared to enter Roaring Beast Valley, and Roaring Beast Valley became Gedanzan's forbidden area. Of course, there were many reckless disciples who wanted to enter Roaring Beast Valley in search of opportunities. However, they all ended up the same. After entering the valley, there was no news of them again. This was because the valley was named Roaring Beast Valley because of the beast roars that came from time to time. In the eyes of the 2 guards, even a martial god would not be able to escape death after entering the valley. How could Yihao, an Emperor Wu level, leave alive after entering the valley? What a strange place. There is no martial arts power. After entering the valley, Yihao immediately sensed that something was wrong. This was because there was no martial arts power in the air in the valley. This also meant that if the martial arts power in the body was exhausted, there would be no martial arts power to replenish it. For a martial artist, This was the most terrifying thing that could happen. How could this be? Yi Hao sensed that something was wrong and knew that he should not stay here for long. He could not put himself in danger for some experience points. However, when he turned around, there was no path behind him. The path had turned into towering trees. Detection technique. Ding dong, detection failed. Insufficient level. Detection technique. Ding dong, detection failed. Insufficient level. Yi Hao used it dozens of times in a row, but he could not detect the existence of the formation at all. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, several beastly roars came from all directions. They were even more powerful than the ones he had heard outside the valley. Detect. Congratulations, host. Detection successful. Ancient mutated beast. Level 1 Martial Emperor. What? Yi Hao thought that he had misheard. He didn't expect these magical beasts to be ancient beasts. Weren't ancient beasts already extinct? In some ancient books, it was known that ancient strange beasts were magical beasts from ancient times, but it had been hundreds of thousands of years since then. And on the myriad kingdom continent, there were almost no traces of ancient mutated beasts. On the myriad kingdom continent, the demonic beasts that were able to possess the blood of ancient demonic beasts were the strongest amongst the demonic beasts. What Yi Hao didn't expect was that these ancient beasts were all pure ancient beasts. But what Yi Hao didn't understand was why there was such a terrifying group of people in the Gedanzan sect. Yi Hao suddenly thought of the two guards who were looking at him with strange expressions on their faces. Damn it, I was tricked. Yi Hao immediately knew that he had been tricked by that disciple. How was that disciple helping him? He was obviously trying to kill him. The beasts in the valley were so powerful, and there was no martial power here. When he ran out of energy, he would definitely become food for these beasts. You're courting death. At this time, one of the ancient strange beasts had already pounced in front of him. Yi Hao didn't have time to draw his weapon and punch the beast's body. Bang! With a loud bang, the strange beast only took a step back. It shook its head and roared angrily, charging at Yi Hao again. How is this possible? Yi Hao was stunned and immediately retreated. Although he didn't use 100% of his strength, he still used 70% of it. He could already deal with a fourth-order martial emperor, and this strange beast was only a first-order martial emperor. Even if his punch couldn't kill it, it would at least be half dead. However, the ancient strange beast didn't seem to feel anything. It couldn't break through its defense. How am I supposed to play with this? Yi Hao was speechless. He knew that the ancient strange beast was powerful, but he didn't expect it to be this powerful. Roar! The ancient strange beast roared and bit at Yi Hao. You're courting death. Do you really think that I'm afraid of you? Since my fist couldn't break through its defense, I'll use my weapon. Yi Hao took out the divine artifact, the blood scar dual blades. I don't believe that I can't break through your defense. Yi Hao roared and slashed at the ancient strange beast with his dual blades. Rip! Suddenly, the sound of skin tearing could be heard. A wound of more than 10 centimeters was torn open on the ancient strange beast body. Haha, there's hope. Seeing that the blood scar dual blades could cause damage to the ancient strange beast, Yi Hao finally heaved a sigh of relief. Thousand Leaves Slash. Yi Hao roared. The Thousand Leaves Slash was naturally a modified version of the Thousand Leaves Palm. One had to know that as long as one used martial techniques flexibly, they could be used regardless of whether one was barehanded or using various weapons. If it were someone else, they might have to put in a lot of effort. However, with the system around, these small problems were easily solved. They weren't a problem at all. Yi Hao used the Falling Leaves Thousand Slash. Instantly, around Yi Hao, close to 1,000 colored transparent blades formed from martial power appeared, condensing around Yi Hao's body. Suddenly, the entire sky changed color. A series of explosions resounded in the air. Roar! The ancient strange beasts around Yi Hao immediately let out uneasy roars. The ancient strange beasts looked at the white blades in the air and pounced on Yi Hao ferociously without hesitation. A bunch of idiots die. If this group of ancient strange beasts didn't attack together, Yi Hao wouldn't have been able to kill all of them at the same time. This was because the thousand leaves slash covered a wide area, but it lost its flexibility and couldn't be controlled flexibly. If these ancient strange beasts scattered and fled, Yihao wouldn't be able to cause damage to all of them. The blood-scarred dual blades in Yihao's hands slashed fiercely at an ancient strange beast. At the same time, it drove the nearly 1,000 white blades around Yihao. Yihao's blood-scarred dual blades swiftly and violently slashed into the body of an ancient strange beast. The ancient strange beast was instantly cut in half. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for killing an ancient strange beast. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 200,000 soul points. A voice immediately rang out in Yihao's mind. What surprised him was that both the experience points and soul points were twice as much as killing the magical beasts outside. After Yihao killed an ancient strange beast, Yihao's 1,000 leaves slash finally landed on the bodies of more than a dozen magical beasts. However, the ancient strange beasts weren't afraid at all and still wanted to pounce on Yihao. In the blink of an eye, their bodies were pierced by the sharp blades formed from martial power. Each of the ancient strange beasts had dozens of bloody holes in their bodies. Chapter 341. Ding Dong. Congratulations to the host for killing an ancient mutated beast. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 200,000 soul points. Ding Dong. Congratulations to the host for killing an ancient mutated beast. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 200,000 soul points. The notifications in Yihao's mind instantly rang out nonstop, causing Yihao to enjoy the feeling of his experience skyrocketing. Although he had only killed a dozen or so ancient mutated beasts, Yihao had obtained more than 30 million experience points, and his soul points had finally reached 40 million. He was only 10 million away from being able to summon a martial saint expert. Roar! The smell of blood from the dozen or so ancient mutated beasts immediately spread out, attracting even more ancient mutated beasts. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, countless ancient mutated beasts sped towards him, causing Yihao to clearly feel that the ground beneath his feet was trembling. Come, let this young master kill to his heart's content today. Although there was no martial power in this place, the martial power in his body was enough for him to use a powerful martial skill of the same intensity as before 10 times. Even if he could obtain 30 million experience points from using the falling leaves 1,000 once, 10 times would require at least 300 million experience points. 300 million experience points was enough for him to level up a few times. Furthermore, as long as he could ensure that he could level up, he wouldn't die so easily. This was because as long as he leveled up, no matter how serious his injuries were, the system would be able to instantly heal him. Even the martial power in his body was the same. Therefore, to other warriors, this place might be a tomb, but to Yihao, as long as he did it properly, there would be no restrictions on Yihao. On the contrary, this place was a paradise for experience and soul points. This was because as long as he killed the ancient mutated beasts here, he would obtain double the experience points. This was equivalent to a dungeon with double the experience points. These are good stuff. Looking at the bodies of the ancient mutated beasts on the ground, Yihao immediately kept them into the system. This was because the bodies of these ancient mutated beasts were treasures to warriors. Therefore, Yihao wouldn't waste them. Furthermore, he had the system space, and there was no limit to it. Naturally, he didn't have to worry about not having enough space. Of course, Yihao didn't mind collecting all the bodies of these magical beasts. You should know that this is a martial monarch realm ancient beast. If you were to sell it outside, you would probably be able to sell it for an astronomical price. Falling leaves 1,000 / Black dragon / Earth devouring / because only by using the bloodstained dual sabers could he break through the ancient mutated beast defense. Yi Hao decided to use all of his martial techniques. Roar! The ancient beast pounced on Yi Hao one after another. In Yi Hao's mind, the system's notifications kept ringing nonstop. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for killing an ancient mutated beast. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 200,000 soul points. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for killing an ancient mutated beast. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 200,000 soul points. Yi Hao killed more than a dozen ancient mutated beasts in a row before the system notification finally arrived. Congratulations to the host for reaching 60 million experience points. Upgrade requirements met. Do you wish to upgrade? No. Yi Hao immediately chose to decline. In this place, martial power was a priceless treasure. Furthermore, he still had quite a bit of martial power in his body. He absolutely couldn't waste this martial power. In this Beast Roar Valley, what else was more precious than martial power? Come, let the experience points and soul points fly crazily. Since he already had a trump card, Yi Hao became even more fearless and directly charged towards the ancient mutated beast horde. Most of the ancient mutated beasts had gained intelligence. After all, they were already at the martial monarch realm. Most of the saint-level magical beasts could transform. Now that they saw that Yi Hao was so arrogant and even dared to charge into their horde, countless ancient mutated beasts immediately felt Yi Hao's provocation and pounced on Yi Hao even more violently, biting and tearing at Yi Hao. They were determined to tear this arrogant brat to shreds and swallow him. Father, this is bad. After chatting with Guo Jinyu for half a day, Guo Shuefu came out to look for Yi Hao. She wanted to thank Yi Hao, but she couldn't find Yi Hao's shadow, even after a long time. Guo Shuefu immediately ran in front of Guo Jinyu anxiously and shouted anxiously. Guo Jinyu frowned and looked at Guo Shuefu. This was because Guo Shuefu had never panicked in front of him. Guo Jinyu knew that something had really happened. He immediately stood up and comforted her. Daughter, don't worry. What exactly happened? Father, Lu Ji is missing, Guo Shuefu said while panting heavily. What? Guo Jinyu's face was filled with shock. How is that possible? Wait for me to go and check. Guo Jinyu immediately flew out. Guo Shuefu also anxiously followed. Have you seen your commander? Guo Jinyu first went to the place where the guards were resting and asked. Greetings, sect leader Guo. Isn't the commander with Miss Guo? The guards also looked at Guo Jinyu with puzzlement. Could it be that something has happened to our commander? Nothing. Guo Jinyu waved his sleeves. Time was of the essence, and he did not want to waste time with these guards. He immediately flew in another direction. Miss Guo, what happened to our commander? Now that they were in someone else's territory, no matter what, Yi Hao was their commander. Furthermore, quite a few people had already let go of their grudges against him. Now that they saw Guo Jinyu and Guo Shuefu, many of the guards asked anxiously. No, nothing. Guo Shuefu also did not know how to explain to these guards. She turned and chased after Guo Jinyu. Father, when Lu Ji came to the sect, he offended the disciples outside. I suspect. Guo Shuefu caught up with Guo Jinyu and said with a worried look on her face. What? Why didn't you tell me about this? Guo Jinyu's face changed slightly. He did not say anything more and immediately flew towards the outer sect. When Guo Jinyu arrived at the outer sect, everyone immediately rushed out to welcome him. Greetings, sect leader. Everyone greeted him in unison. After all, Guo Jinyu was the strongest person in Gedanzin and had a lot of prestige among the disciples. Greetings, sect leader. May I know what brings you to the outer sect? Some of the outer sect elders also flew over and asked respectfully when they sensed Guo Jinyu's aura. Let me ask you, did you catch someone called Lu Ji? Guo Jinyu went straight to the point and asked the elders. Guo Jinyu's attitude was tough. But at the same time, these elders did not dare to challenge Guo Jinyu's authority. All of the elders looked at each other and shook their heads, indicating that they did not. You really didn't? Guo Jinyu narrowed his eyes and continued to interrogate the elders. Sect leader, we don't even know who this Lu Ji is. Why do we catch him? That's right, sect leader. Who is this Lu Ji? Sect leader, we are innocent. We really don't know what happened. One by one, the elders cried out in unison. Who is this Lu Ji? Why is the sect leader suddenly concerned about this person? I heard that he is a commander of the guards who escorted Miss back. A commander? Is there a need for the sect leader to come personally and make such a big fuss? Who knows? I heard that this Lu Ji even injured ninth senior brother. Do you think? Chapter 342. Hearing the disciples' discussion, Guo Jinyu frowned and shouted, "Fifth disciple of the outer sect, come out now." Hearing Guo Jinyu call out to him, the fifth senior brother panicked and his palms were sweating. He immediately walked out shakily and knelt on the ground. "Greetings, sect leader," the fifth senior brother said with a trembling voice. Guo Jinyu was a martial sage, and he had the aura of a sect leader. Although Guo Jinyu did not deliberately release his aura, it was enough to make the fifth senior brother panic. The fifth senior brother did not understand. Who was this Yihao? What was his background? Wasn't he just a small commander? No matter what, Yihao was just an outsider. He was the disciple of Gedanzin. He was the hope of Gedanzin's future. Why would the Grandmaster question him for the sake of an outsider right now? I'm asking you, where is Lu Ji? Guo Jinyu narrowed his eyes and stared at the fifth senior brother. I don't know. The fifth senior brother said stubbornly. Anyway, as long as he did not admit to it, no one would know that he was the culprit. After all, the disciple that he had sent out had already been killed by him. You're really not going to tell me? Guo Jinyu's face was ashen. Looking at the fifth senior brother's expression, Guo Jinyu knew that the fifth senior brother definitely had something to do with this. However, such a small disciple, even if he was a genius in the sect, dared to lie to him. He did not take him seriously at all. Since that was the case, what was the use of keeping him alive? Seeing that Guo Jinyu was looking at him with a murderous look, the fifth senior brother suddenly panicked. He hurriedly cast a pleading look at his master. Sect leader, leave this matter to me. Don't worry, I'll help you find out the truth. However, before we have evidence, we can't accuse an innocent person. Seeing his disciples' pleading gaze, the third elder coughed a few times and said to Guo Jinyu, "You're saying that I'm accusing him." Guo Jinyu raised his eyelids, and a trace of displeasure appeared in his eyes. This fifth senior brother's master was the outer sect's third supreme elder. He was one rank higher than an ordinary elder, which meant that his seniority was even higher than his own. However, such an old thing had secretly done many things to destroy Gedanzin. If it wasn't for the sake of the overall situation, he would have killed him with his own hands. All right, don't you want to get to the bottom of this? I'll give you a chance. Guo Jinyu suddenly thought of a way to deal with the third supreme elder. I'll give you an incense stick's worth of time. If you don't give me an answer, I'll punish you and your disciple together. The third supreme elder's expression changed slightly as a trace of ruthlessness flashed across his eyes. However, with Guo Jinyu's strength, he couldn't resist too much. This elder accepts the order. Let's see how arrogant you can be. The third supreme elder sneered in his heart because Guo Jinyu had no successor. So what if he was powerful? Not long after, an elder leaned over and whispered in Guo Jinyu's ear. Guo Jinyu's eyes were suddenly filled with shock. Damn it! Guo Jinyu's face turned gloomy. 17th disciple of the outer sect, get out here. When the disciples saw that their sect master was suddenly enraged, they were all in a daze. They didn't understand what the elder had said to Guo Jinyu to make him so angry. One had to know that Guo Jinyu had been in control of Gedanzin for hundreds of years. When the disciples saw Guo Jinyu, they were all amiable. Many of the disciples rarely saw Guo Jinyu get angry. Moreover, it wasn't ordinary anger. As soon as Guo Jinyu finished speaking, the disciples started searching for the 17th disciple in the crowd. Where is he? Get out here. After waiting for a while, Guo Jinyu couldn't help but shout again. His expression was even uglier. Reporting to the sect master. Suddenly, a disciple ran over. "What's the matter? Speak." Reporting to the sect master, 17th senior brother has committed suicide by consuming poison. The disciple had received Guo Jinyu's permission and reported in a trembling voice. What? The disciple's words immediately caused an uproar. In Gedanzin, only the favored ones were lucky enough to be ranked by numbers. Gedanzin had 100,000 outer disciples, and only 100 of them were ranked. The 17th disciple was already very impressive to be able to be ranked 17th. However, how could a 17th disciple with a bright future commit suicide by consuming poison? What? Impossible. How could 17th junior brother commit suicide by consuming poison? At this moment, it was finally time to test his acting skills. Although he was the one who killed the 17th disciple, he could only put on an act and cry bitterly in order not to arouse suspicion. My good 17th junior brother would never commit suicide. Someone must have framed him. I must avenge him, the 5th senior brother complained with tears and snot all over his face. Sect Master, 17th junior brother would never commit suicide. You must help him find the culprit. The 5th senior brother suddenly turned around and knelt in front of Guo Jinyu's feet. He kept knocking his head on the ground, making muffled sounds. 5th senior brother is really affectionate and righteous. With such a senior brother, what else can we ask for? Sigh, it's really hard to find someone as loyal as 5th senior brother in the ranks of martialists. Moreover, it seems like 5th senior brother and 17th senior brother's relationship is really good. Even I feel a little pain when he kowtows. The 5th senior brother's acting skills immediately resonated with many disciples. Each and every one of them praised the 5th senior brother generously. Hearing the praises of the disciples, the 5th senior brother was delighted. Old man, let's see what you could do as long as you can't produce any evidence. Good disciple, I'm really gratified to have a disciple like you. The 3rd Supreme Elder squinted his eyes and looked at his beloved disciple with a gratified expression. A pair of big and small foxes. Guo Jinyu gritted his teeth as he watched the master and disciple echo each other. However, he could not produce any evidence. Moreover, it was obvious that the 5th senior brother had already won the hearts of the disciples outside. If he could not produce any strong evidence, he would definitely damage his dignity as the sect master if he made a move on the 5th senior brother. Guo Jinyu snorted coldly. He swept up the 17th junior brother's physical body and flew towards his main palace. Farewell, sect master. Seeing Guo Jinyu leave in anger, all the disciples and elders immediately bowed and shouted, Disciple, did you do it cleanly? After Guo Jinyu left, the 3rd Supreme Elder immediately called the 5th senior brother to his residence and asked. The 5th senior brother's expression changed again and again. He did not expect his master to know about this matter. He did not know if his master would punish him for this matter. The 5th senior brother immediately lowered his head and kept thinking of countermeasures in his mind. The 3rd Supreme Elder glanced at his beloved disciple. What's wrong? You even want to hide it from your master? Don't worry, I won't blame you for this matter. Master, you really won't blame me? Killing a fellow disciple was not a small matter. Chapter 343. He's not my disciple. If you killed him, so be it. How could I blame you for an outsider? The 3rd Great Elder said with a smile. I'll ask you one more time. Did you kill him cleanly? Don't let Guo Jinyu find out anything. If that happens, I won't be able to escape the blame. Seeing that his master really did not blame him, 5th senior brother could not help but let out a sigh of relief. As long as his master was protecting him, there was nothing for him to worry about. Recalling the process of killing the witness, 5th senior brother believed that he had not left any loopholes. He immediately shook his head and said, Master, I didn't leave any traces behind. Very good. The 3rd Great Elder could not help but praise. At the same time, he did not forget to remind him, although Guo Jinyu won't be able to find any evidence, he won't be able to do anything to you. However, he is still the leader of a sect, 7th level martial sacred realm expert. Even I am no match for him. Therefore, you must be careful in the future. Hearing his master's reminder, 5th senior brother quickly nodded. Don't worry, master. I'll go into seclusion in a few days. I guarantee that he won't be able to find anything wrong with me, and he won't be able to find anything that can be used against me. The third great elder nodded and asked curiously, that lose something, who exactly is he? Why is Guo Jinyu treating him so seriously? 5th senior brother had a confused expression too. I don't know. I only know that he is the leader of the guards that escorted Guo Shiuefu back. Furthermore, he is very strong. Thinking of how Yi Hao had crippled 9th junior brother so easily, 5th senior brother was still secretly shocked. However, if he entered the Beast Roar Valley now, even if he had 100 lives, he would still die in there. Thinking of how Yi Hao had entered the Beast Roar Valley, 5th senior brother felt extremely joyful, as if the anger in his heart had been completely vented. Of course, he had also sacrificed a little bit, and that was sacrificing a lackey that he liked. Since he has entered the Beast Roar Valley, then this matter is over. You should go into seclusion first. Come out after this matter is over. Hearing that Yi Hao had entered the Beast Roar Valley, third great elder no longer worried. Even a martial god realm expert would not be able to leave the Beast Roar Valley. And if Yi Hao went in, would he be able to come out alive? Master, my alchemy realm is already stuck at the bottleneck of the 7th level. I hope that master can give me some pointers. 5th senior brother said to 3rd supreme elder. The highest 3rd elder nodded. He was also increasingly fond of this disciple of his. Cultivating both martial arts and alchemy at such a young age, he was already on the verge of becoming an 8th rank alchemist. With a little bit of training, it wasn't impossible for him to become a saint-grade alchemist. As long as his disciple became a saint-grade alchemist, wouldn't this Gedanzen be his? Father, what happened to Lu Ji? Back in the main hall, Guo Shiuefu asked nervously when she saw Guo Jinyu's livid face. Lu Ji, he entered the Beast Roar Valley. Guo Jinyu paused for a moment, but still told Guo Shiuefu the truth. What? When Guo Shiuefu heard the news, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her mind went blank, and her body trembled. Her eyes were glazed over. Daughter, seeing Guo Shiuefu's appearance, Guo Jinyu supported Guo Shiuefu with heartache. Father, why did he enter the Beast Roar Valley? Why did he enter the Beast Roar Valley? This news isn't reliable, right? Guo Shiuefu quickly grabbed Guo Jinyu's hand and asked urgently. Daughter, calm down. Lu Ji entered the Beast Roar Valley. Maybe he can come out. Guo Jinyu shouted coldly, saying something that even he didn't believe. As the sect master of Gedanzen, he was very clear about the terror of the Beast Roar Valley. Even the previous sect founder, a martial god-level powerhouse, had entered and couldn't come out. In his eyes, if Yi Hao entered the Beast Roar Valley, it would be even more certain death. On the contrary, if Yi Hao could come out of the Beast Roar Valley alive, it would be a miracle in his eyes. On the contrary, it would be really abnormal. And the reason why Gedanzen was lonely was really related to this Beast Roar Valley. Because the only remaining martial god expert in Gedanzen had reached the end of his life. If he didn't break through, he would die. Therefore, in order to fight to the death, the martial god ignored the ancestral taboo and barged into the Beast Roar Valley alone. It had been nearly 10 years, and the martial god still hadn't come out. In his opinion, if the martial god hadn't broken through, he would have died without a doubt. Yes, that's right. I'm going to wait for him to come out. Hearing Guo Jinyu's words, Guo Shiuefu's eyes carried a trace of hope and immediately flew in the direction of the Beast Roar Valley. Sigh. Seeing Guo Shiuefu's appearance, Guo Jinyu sighed. He sent a voice transmission to Shaoqing. Go and watch the young miss. Don't let her enter the Beast Roar Valley. Let her do as she pleases. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for killing an ancient beast. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 200,000 soul points. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 13 million experience points. You can level up to Emperor Wu rank 7. Do you want to level up? After Yi Hao killed dozens of ancient beasts, the system's notification finally sounded. Level up. Yi Hao immediately said to the system. Because he had continuously killed dozens of ancient beasts, the energy in his body was almost completely depleted. At this moment, all the ancient beasts pounced at Yi Hao even more ferociously. Yi Hao and the others could feel that Yi Hao was about to die. Many ancient beasts excitedly pounced at Yi Hao. Ding dong. Congratulations on consuming 6 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. Current level, Emperor Wu rank 6. Come, my little darlings. In an instant, some of the injuries on Yi Hao's body were instantly healed, and the martial arts power in his body was once again filled to the brim. Yi Hao excitedly charged at an ancient beast in front of him and stabbed the blood-stained dual blades into the ancient beast's body. The trace of blood that the ancient beast had left on the blood-stained dual sabers was immediately absorbed by the blood-stained dual sabers, disappearing without a trace. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for killing an ancient beast. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 200,000 soul points. Haha soon. Yi Hao glanced at the soul points. He was less than 2 million away from being able to summon a martial sage. In other words, he only needed to kill 10 more ancient beasts to fulfill this condition. What a monster! All the ancient beasts had the same thought in their minds. In their opinion, Yi Hao should have been lacking in energy and then unable to carry on and be torn apart by them. Who knew that Yi Hao seemed to have become even more powerful in an instant. Moreover, his energy seemed to be inexhaustible. However, they simply didn't have the time to think about it, because Yi Hao had already arrived in front of them. Actually, Yi Hao hadn't noticed that every time he killed an ancient beast, the inscribing heart in his eyes would rotate slightly. It would absorb some of the energy in the air into the inscribing heart, and then into the heavenly Een spirit's body. The heavenly Een spirit would then transfer the energy into the heavenly Een battle beast bodies. What a strange kid. Kill him. I don't believe that his energy is truly inexhaustible. In the depths of the roaring beast valley, a pair of eyes was staring at Yi Hao. He had originally thought that Yi Hao might not even be able to withstand the attack of one ancient beast after entering the roaring beast valley. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.